Hello.
Oh, it actually was a Star Wars swipe. Wow.
Yeah.
Nice.
Well,
All right. Hi, everybody. Hello. Welcome. Good to see all of you this Sunday afternoon. Remember for a bit what time of
yes.
day. Yeah, good to see all of you. Hello. I'm Sam. This is Justin.
Hello.
And we are here talking about DMing, D&D, and in particular today, our main subject for the very beginning, very topical for the channel right now,
hmm
ending a campaign.
Yeah, especially a long one.
hmm Because you may be aware if you're on this channel, uh, our Wednesday night game, Beneath the Tide, just wrapped up its final boss fight on Wednesday, this last Wednesday, and this next Wednesday will be our final session of the campaign where we say goodbye to these characters we've been playing for like 2 years.
Yes.
I think slightly less than that in the case of Leah and Ogden, but
Yeah.
still like well over a year for all of us at least.
Yes. A chunky amount of time.
hmm And we'll be starting up our new, well, doing a session zero of our next campaign the week after, which will not be televised.
Correct.
And then Ogden one shot the week after that, which I'm excited for. And then
Correct.
starting off our new campaign. I'm very excited. I was just telling Justin, I got like a special pen and a new, like a full on journal for this character because while Ash did not keep notes because he's a dumb barbarian, not that dumb, but he really doesn't pay attention. My next character is the opposite of that, and will be paying very much attention. So I will be taking detailed notes.
It's gonna be great. I have the first session already written out and ready to go. It's gonna be a lot of fun. April
Yeah,
7th, 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time.
yeah, be
Art is
there.
being commissioned, and it's great looking art.
I've
Uh,
already seen mine. It's so great. I'm so
yep.
excited.
The artist isn't taking commissions anymore, so
hmm
we're the last commissions.
Nice. Like ever or
Indefinitely. We'll see.
okay, okay. All
Um,
right.
yeah.
So talking about ending a campaign here for a second. So I guess kind of just like since you are in the process of ending a campaign here, what goes into ending a campaign? What are some things you had to consider that were different than your normal prep when you come into ending this campaign, this last couple sessions?
More stress and anxiety
I see.
to make sure everyone is kind of happy with how it ends. Make sure everybody gets their own little nice little story wrap up. It's going to be difficult for this one based on how only two characters in the party are going to be able to remain in the material plane, while the other four or the other three are being kind of not banished, but well,
Well,
forced
we'll see.
into other planes of existence.
Yeah.
So just trying to find like I don't really know. I think just making sure everybody has enough time, equal time,
hmm
to sort of wrap up their character stuff. Because that's what this week's session is going to be. Just basically wrapping up everybody's stuff.
And so because last week was the big final boss fight, and that was the focus for you. Was just like,
Yes,
here's our big bad, here's Asmodeus, let's go fight. Like round one, let's go.
and it was a fight.
It was a fight. That was a good fight. What goes into so? Is there a difference between prepping a regular boss fight versus prepping your final boss fight, like the antagonist of the campaign?
Uh, Usually when I first started Beneath the Tide, it, it, all the combat prep was the same. These enemies want to kill people, make them tough. And then over those 2 years, or the 2 years since I've been doing it, I've kind of learned encounter balancing. At least I hope. Um, so I tend to some of the boss encounters I want them to be tough, but I don't want them to be like impossible. Asmodeus, I wanted to be use your stuff smart. If you're not going to be smart, I am not going to hold back in this encounter. I'm not going to go easy if I feel like this encounter might lead to a TPK because that's what Asmodeus wants. He wants to kill all you. So I was very much I'm going to play this guy with the intent of wiping these characters out. So I think I wanted it to be near impossible to beat him. Um, and yeah, fighting a character who's essentially CR 30
Mm-hmm.
with people who are level 16.
Just shy
Uh,
of ninth level spells. Just shy of those ninth level
yep.
spells.
So I thought, well, it would be cool to do to set up this kind of arc where they have to collect. They can collect maybe very powerful artifacts that can help them in the final encounter. Um, but I made the artifacts have a cost, and some of the party weren't interested in the cost, which is cool. Some were very much interested in the cost, and yeah, I got away from the question, but I think uh, final boss encounters need to feel like they're the final boss. Like they
Mm-hmm.
need to feel like they're deadly, and they need to feel like this is it. We have to go all out, or we're gonna die. And especially because Asmodeus had 3 days where he could cast Power Word Kill 3 times a day. So,
How many ninth level spell slots did he have, by the way? Was it three?
so he wasn't a spellcast. He was an innate spellcaster. So
Okay.
he had some eighth level spells and some ninth level spells he could cast 5 times a day.
Mm.
Then the more
Oh, so it was by spell. It wasn't by spell
yeah.
slot.
So
I
Power
see.
Word Kill was 3 times a day. But
Mm.
for example, Power Word Stun or Power Word Pain, he could do 5 times a day, and then Wish he could do once a year.
Oh wow.
And I was getting ready for him to cast Wish because he hadn't cast it yet this year, so he's going to cast Wish and basically say "fuck this world."
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but he didn't get the chance because that would have been fun. Have somebody
Yeah.
counterspell a Wish. Ooh,
Mm-hmm.
ooh. Yeah. Basically, I think yeah. So prepping normal boss encounters, I like them to be nowadays. I like them to be easy to overcome. Not easy to overcome, but you know,
Doable.
doable.
Mm-hmm.
Asmodeus, I didn't want to be doable, but it
Mm.
turned out he was, which is good.
Yeah. And yeah, they definitely. I like you. You had also like the cultists and the crystals around too, which just provided like another. It wasn't just like gang up on him, surround him, and beat him
Yeah.
up, and it was like everyone. It ended up generally for me, especially in a map where there's a or an encounter where there's a battle map. For just kind of in my mind, or at least when I'm thinking about my own prepping, generally what the sign of a really good encounter is a lot of movement.
Mm-hmm.
Like if everyone has a reason to go around and do a bunch of different things. And there was a bunch of that. Like Eclipse was like running around the outside, destroying the crystals and everything. Uh, Ash was chasing Asmodeus around. Noose and Ogden were running out to go get healing and
Mm-hmm.
coming back, and then there was the black hole and everything. Like we were just zipping all over that place. There was a lot of like tension and like it
Yeah.
felt like we have a never-ending to-do list.
That's a thing I've learned to do for boss encounters too. Is it's more fun, I think, if there's more to do in a boss encounter instead of just whack away at an enemy's hit points,
Mm-hmm.
like we did for the purple worm, which was half the group fighting the purple worm, half the group fighting the creepy knoll,
Mm-hmm.
the guy who owned the arena. And then for Asmodeus, I was like, I've kind of done this before for sort of a final boss encounter on the channel, because the final boss encounter in the city below,
Mm.
before like the first arc of City Below, when y'all were still in the city below,
Right.
there was the crystals.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm gonna do this a little better this time, I think. So there was these
Oh,
crystals and
that's right. That
Asmodeus.
was a nice callback to
Yeah,
to
yeah,
the first
yep.
big boss fight of the camp of the channel.
And fun fact: if those crystals got to round 10 and even one was still intact, Asmodeus' spell would have, his ritual that he did would have succeeded.
Oh.
And you guys were at round 6.
Whew.
Yeah,
When we finished the fight, or when we destroyed the crystals?
when you destroy the crystals,
Okay.
I think. But yeah, if it got to round 10 and even one crystal was still intact, his ritual would have succeeded, and it would have been bad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I like doing that kind of stuff too, like timed things that need to be done in a certain amount of time, especially for a boss encounter. So yeah, that's why the imp said focus on the crystals, and it was
Mm-hmm.
fun. One
Yeah.
person died,
Yeah. Just bam, power word kill right there.
and if anyone got sucked up into the that Ravenous Void spell,
Hmm.
you just get obliterated. Not
Yep.
disintegrated, obliterated. But there's
Yep.
nothing left of you. Yeah.
Is it magic items are left behind, right?
Magic items are left behind, but anything that's non-magic, no artifacts. I think it destroys
Oh, is it
everything
just
but
artifacts?
artifacts. I could be
Whoa. I
wrong,
mean, that makes sense, but
but yeah, it obliterates
yeesh.
everything that gets. So yeah, 0 hit points in there,
Yep. That is
gone.
an intense. That is an intense spell.
And then yeah, Asmodeus dropped a couple ninth level spells in that fight. He did
A lot of
Time
them. Yeah.
Ravage. He aged dogged him to death
Yep.
almost, and then
Meteor swarm in there.
a meteor swarm.
Power word kill. Ravenous voice. So, seems like he was just spamming ninth level spells really,
He
like
was
for most of his turns.
yeah, he was there to kill people.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was tough. Yeah. Especially with those chains that like held down Ogden and
Oh yeah,
Leah.
lair actions, legendary
Yep.
actions. Oh yeah, yeah, those chains were disgusting. Go
Yeah.
watch if you're in the chat and you haven't watched the fight, go watch last week's episode. It's a really good
It's
combat
yeah.
encounter.
It was a very fun fight.
Everyone is like everyone's like on their A game. I forgot that Asmodeus has the ability to reflect spells.
Yeah.
So Leah goes to cast Feeble Mind on him, and he reflected Feeble Mind back at her, and she succeeded on its save.
Yep. Almost
Oh,
feeble-minded herself,
man,
but successfully did not, which was good. That would have been rough.
yeah,
Especially, I don't know, we would have, if we had won the fight, we would have been able to fix it. I was just thinking like how sad it would have been if she had been feeble-minded through the rest of her, like the rest of her time on the material plane,
last
and like
30 days, I think.
yeah, so like, and if the fight had ended and she'd still been feeble-minded and like
It
we
would have
just
sucked.
couldn't even say goodbye. Oh, that'd been so sad.
Yep, would have been great.
I mean, it would have. That would have been just beautiful tragedy right there. But
Oh man, but he was destroyed,
yeah,
and
now there's going to be a new Asmodeus.
that's right.
I need to. That's right. I need to send you things. I need to send
That's
you
right.
stuff on what Ash is going to do. What Ash is planning on doing when his ass is in the chair.
That's right.
I should have hedged my bets and made a character for your next campaign who worshipped who worshipped
Worship
Asmodeus.
Ash.
Yeah, worship myself.
Oh man.
No, that would have been a bit much. That would have been a bit much.
Yeah, yeah. Next campaign, these characters from Beneath the Tide, they are not going to be. They'll be mentioned maybe in passing as like, hey, the people who defeated Asmodeus, but that's it.
Hmm.
I don't want any of these characters to have any connections to the people from Beneath the Tide in any way, because I want to do two separate. I want to do a separate story. This is their story. They're not going to have the next campaign isn't going to be a cataclysmic event. Maybe there might be a cataclysmic event in there somewhere when they get high level, but it's not
We
going to be.
might cause it.
It's not going to be. Yeah, it's not going to be a cataclysmic event right out the gate. I'm going to very much cater the villains that pop up to possibly what you all do,
Hmm.
and if I got cool ideas for stuff, throw it
Oh
there.
yeah. I think some of my favorites. Some of my favorite villains are always the ones that it's like a minor villain that wasn't supposed to be a big deal, that like low levels or something, whatever, bandit boss or something,
Yeah.
that then like they manage to get away, like the party doesn't capture them, and then
Oh,
they're
that's my
out there,
favorite.
and it's like, oh, okay, and then it's like, oh, maybe they go to this place, or like they team up with this person, and they do this, and they gain a little bit of power, and now they're a little bit more dangerous, and they come back and they face the party, and they get away again, and they're like, well, maybe they keep getting more powerful. It's like
Mm-hmm.
the villain that levels up with the
Mm-hmm.
party, and the party, because for them at that point the party is just like they're almost like angry every time they show up. Because I was like, why you're not important. Stop hounding us. You're just a bandit.
I really enjoy doing the villain who gets away and comes back. I did that in Wildmount, our Wildmount campaign, and that guy died of his own hubris, which is fun.
Mm.
But that's my very long answer to that question.
Yeah.
Chat. Also, chat. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in chat. We will answer them. They don't have to be about ending campaigns. They can be about anything.
Yep.
Um, yeah.
Are there any like hanging threads or any story lines, things that like we didn't pursue throughout the campaign that like just are kind of just going to be left hanging
Yeah.
that we didn't? Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
The Shadow Pirates that killed Mordecai.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, we never
Yeah.
we never
Nope.
we never investigated that. That's
Nope.
just that still around.
Yeah. That was their ship that was trapped underneath Bleak Skull that sailed out from after that, after Bleak Skull split apart. So yeah, they're
What
they're still
caused
out and
Bleak
about.
What caused Bleak Skull to split apart?
I don't remember.
Okay, 'Cause I remember it was like
so
that
long ago.
happened.
I don't remember. I think it was something to do with the chest you found that had the artifact in it. Let's
We
see what.
find an artifact in Bleak Skull.
Yeah, it was in a chest. It was in the Iron Bull's chest or something.
Oh,
I don't
okay,
remember. It
okay.
was so long ago that I don't remember.
I just remember it was like the island like sank, and then like their ship came up out of it, and we're just like, well, that's gonna be a problem. And then it just like didn't we just like didn't investigate it, and it kind of
And
didn't
then
come up
and
again.
then I'm like, okay, well, these guys are gonna kill Mordecai, because that's their whole thing was. Well, yeah, they might show up next campaign, so who knows?
Oh boy, we'll just stay landlocked. We'll just stay inland, and we'll be okay.
They're probably gonna stay on Ipshire, so that's Ipshire's problem.
Yeah.
That continent's problem. Yeah, there's other stuff that I'm excited to probably explore next campaign.
Mhm.
The adult Draculich y'all awoke and just let it go.
Mhm.
Yeah, Draculiches are fun. What are things worth avoiding when it comes to ending a campaign, both as a dungeon master and a player?
Ooh, good question.
You can answer that first, Sam, because I have to think.
Okay. Um, things to avoid when ending a campaign. I think for me, I think like, and this is kind of true of any as being a dungeon master in any capacity, but especially when it comes to endings, like railroading too much, like not necessarily railroad, but like having too strong of an idea in your mind of like where it's going to end, because like then it kind of just feels like you're at the end of the roller coaster at that
Yeah.
point. It's just like you can feel the track that comes and it's like, and here's this ending, and it's like, you know, let the players have their do what they're going to do. Let the players have their fun, make choices, and make decisions that are going to make a difference. So that way, when they get to the end, it feels like, oh yeah, it may have been messy, it may have been chaotic, but like when we turn back and look at the path that got us here, that was the path we chose. It wasn't just like the path we were pushed down, which
Mm-hmm.
I think you did great. Like especially with the with the artifacts, it was like, oh, we realized like we have a choice here. We can actually like decide to just say screw that and throw these away and do this a different way. And like we
Mm-hmm.
had multiple avenues of approach here. Just like even just having multiple options just provides that variety that I think is really helpful.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I think because I think as a dungeon master and a player, I'm not a player often, but I think it's important to let the players make the choices of how they want to end their story. Even if something happens where they don't get too much of a choice in it, like Ash and Leah,
Right.
they still get some choice in it. Because I'm giving them the option to kind of decide things for their ending.
Hmm.
Um, but also like just let the others make their choices too. Don't try to like make a single choice for everybody.
Hmm.
Because I don't think everybody is gonna. No one's gonna want the same kind of ending as somebody else might. Like one person might want to travel the world after their story is done, but everyone else might not want to. So if that person can do that, blah blah blah. Let people have
Hmm.
let people have their choices.
Yeah. And as a player, that's a tough one. Like what to
Yeah,
avoid as a player when it comes to ending campaigns. And I'm trying to think. Generally, everything I'm trying to come up with something, and everything I'm coming up with is very much like stuff you should just kind of generally avoid. I
yeah.
don't know if it's unique to endings, because
Respect the other
I
players.
guess
Maybe respect the other players' choices with how they want their character story to end. Maybe.
yeah, I guess like avoid that's one thing. Kind of avoid holding on to the status quo as it has been
Yeah.
throughout the campaign. Like it's the ending, you're not going to be playing anymore, so it's like similar. The beginning of the campaign, the players are kind of all separate and it's very open, and then naturally playing a campaign, you come together and form your party dynamic, and you need to work together. And there's the classic saying like, well, if your character wouldn't work with the party, then make a character that would.
Yeah.
But then like it's kind of like you get to the end of the campaign and it kind of becomes the opposite. It's like, well, now is the time when things open up again, and that
Mm-hmm.
thread can start to fray at the end, because some people are going to go over here and do this, some people are going to go over here and do this. So like don't try and like cling to the like the way that things have been up until that point.
Yeah. Because yeah. not everyone is gonna have the same end goals.
Hmm.
Not everyone's gonna be like, let's just stick around, let's keep hanging out. Like, no, some people
Hmm.
probably want to like retire. Some people probably want to have a family. Some people probably want to go rule the nine hells.
Hmm.
Yeah, so yeah,
Yeah. I guess also at the same time, like if you're a DM and it's a definitive ending, like also don't maybe don't end it too soon too. Like I'm not
mm,
like if there is something where it is natural where like you end the campaign and everyone's still kind of around, their characters are like, what's our next adventure? It's like, well, maybe that wasn't the ending. Maybe like
yeah,
like ending is kind of like a group decision, and like in something like Beneath the Tide that we just went through, we had a very natural ending point with the story, and it's like, okay, we've reached the end of this kind of storyline. But if it's something where it's like none, no one's in any, we finished this adventure, we're at the end of the story, but maybe there's room for one more.
yeah, and and if that's what you do, there's always room to do like little one shots to revisit the characters if you need to, like years down the line, like with what we're doing with the Ogden one shot. But that's only revisiting Ogden because everybody else is kind of
Yeah.
gone. Um, but yeah,
Mhm. Yeah, I really like post campaign like epilogue stories,
me too.
like years down the road.
Me
I did
too.
one um way years ago. I did one where like a campaign ended, and like there was a very much of players live happily ever after, their characters go off, they have families, they have kids, and then there was like I forget how many years, like 15 years later or whatever, however many. And we were down only two of the party members at that point, but we they wanted to keep playing, so we was like years down the road, their kids get kidnapped, and there's this whole plot that they get drawn into, and it's like they have to put on the armor again and go out and
Nice.
adventure as still high level characters, but they're a little older now.
I love. Yeah, I'm a huge fan of that stuff too. Yeah, it wouldn't work for it wouldn't. I know it wouldn't work for Beneath the Tide based on how it's ending,
Hmm.
and based on stuff I know that y'all don't know yet. Well,
Hmm.
sort of. The people who are getting sent to other planes of existence kind of know what's up. Um, City Below, we did an epilogue one shot that was in Pandemonium. That was
Hmm.
weird.
I like this one.
Rescuing Sam's character or trying to save Sam's character's soul. Yeah,
And
and Louisville.
Ullasil, yeah.
Yeah, so that was fun. I do like that epilogue stuff, but I think um, that should be like a not an often kind of thing.
Hmm.
If you're exploring like new characters already and you're you know already in a future date of the world, possibly like what I'm doing with our next campaign, 35 years later.
Hmm.
Um, some of those characters would be too old to
Oh
fight.
yeah.
Um, and I kind of like doing big gaps between the campaigns in my world because like it kind of helps with having these characters from the previous campaign not be around to help with the problems of
Hmm.
the current world. Otherwise, it's like, well, what's the point of us dealing with these threats if there's these high level adventurers out here hanging out? Like, what's
Hmm.
the point? So, City Below was 100 and some odd years before Beneath the Tide,
Right, yeah.
and then Beneath the Tide's 35 years before next campaign.
Hmm.
And the good thing is, there's two people from the Beneath the Tide party who'd still be around. Ogden would still be. Half elves don't live long, super long. I think they max at like 150, 200,
Yeah, I think
180,
so.
180.
Okay.
And Tabaxi, yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah,
so,
definitely.
uh, so like Cups and Ogden would still be around, but again, I want this to be a separate kind of story. I want everyone in this next story to make their own story and not have to rely on old adventurers. That's one of the things I didn't like that I did with Beneath the Tide, having like characters from the first campaign kind of out and about hanging out, like Baxter and that, because it kind of it's like, oh, there's these really powerful people around that are probably level 20. Why don't they just deal with this threat for us?
Hmm.
And then I kind of realized, oh man, this many years later, they'd all be dead
Yeah.
because dwarves don't live that long.
Do
Uh,
they not?
Gundar would have been like 300 something.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
or you because it's like 176 years later,
Yeah.
so Gundar would have been dead. Kawana would have been dead because she was only half elf, and Baxter's a human. But I did the whole clone. We did the whole clone
Yep.
thing. Kept cloning himself, but yeah, I think yeah, ending. I think ending a campaign where everyone kind of has a definitive end is really nice. But leave it a little open in case you want to revisit one shots. That's why I kind of like doing the whole at the end of a campaign asking everybody like, what does your character get up to for the next like 5, 10 years? Not like what do they do until they die, because that gives them a definitive end.
Hmm.
If you do kind of like what do they do for the next 5, 10 years, like what does their life look like for the next 5, 10 years, and it gives the player a little bit to like embellish and kind of go crazy with it.
I
Like
think there is
yeah.
also. Oh, sorry.
Oh,
I was gonna say.
yeah, I was done. So
Okay. I think there is also a different dynamic with a setup where you have a sequel campaign, like sequel campaign
mm-hmm.
setup versus not. I think is the thing where like
Mm-hmm.
if you have another campaign like lined up afterwards, like because I've that's a system that I've kind of become.
Sequel campaigns are a
I
lot of fun.
They are, and like I used to not have that be the case as much because when I used to play D&D when I was a lot younger, it was like people, some it would be like a different person would DM or something, or
Yeah.
like the DM would want to try out a different world or something like that. It'd be like completely different. There'd be
Mm-hmm.
completely disjointed. That's if we finished a campaign at all. Finishing a campaign at all when I was younger was rare.
Yeah.
So yeah, just the idea of a sequel campaign I think really changes up that dynamic as well because it's like it's like okay, we're advancing the world, we're moving on to someone else's story within the same world, but like if you don't do that, it's like a completely different world or a completely different dungeon master. It's much easier to revisit
Yeah.
because it's like this world still kind of belongs to these characters. Like
For sure.
there's no one else to pick up the torch. But yeah, if you do the sequel campaign, it is, and I think just the sequel campaign dynamic is like you've talked a lot about like the idea of making sure to leave the old characters behind and like set them aside. It's like no, it's the story belongs to these new characters now.
Mm-hmm.
Let's not overshadow them with their 20th level
Yeah.
predecessors. Um, but there's still like a lot you can play with there too, because like
Mm-hmm.
there are some times where I know some sequel campaigns where it's like, oh, the 20th level characters are now the ones like running the world, and like some I've played with a DM who will like go back, who will actually swap back and forth between the 20th level characters and the low level
Oh,
characters,
that's really cool.
like their perspectives and stuff, and it's like it's almost to the point like has that team has actually managed to like, kind of maneuver things in a way that it's like the 20th level characters are almost or we're almost at some places like obstructing the lower level characters because
Mm.
like they were coming into a little bit of conflict and
Oh, that's
friction
really cool.
between like how they're running the world versus how these characters want to do things, and just kind of seeing two different perspectives.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting because it's the same person, like the same player is on both sides of that, and is like can be mad at themselves then for like getting in their own way, and
Mm-hmm.
it's a really funny interaction then.
Um, I did a sequel campaign for Curse of Strahd because Curse of Strahd ends, and at the end of the book it says, "This isn't permanent. The Dark Powers always bring Strahd back. It could be days, months, years." So I'm like, "Oh, interesting."
Mm-hmm.
So I spun Curse of Strahd off into a Ravenloft campaign as a sequel, and yeah, it was a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun with it because Curse of Strahd is like my favorite adventure module, and then Ravenloft's my favorite setting. So when they announced the Ravenloft setting book for fifth edition, I was like, "Fuck, too late." So Ravenloft campaign Sundays. Um, but yeah, sequel campaigns can be a lot of fun, especially if everyone wants to continue the story.
Yeah,
What are
yeah.
your thoughts on structuring arcs so the campaign can be ended at the end of an arc?
Ooh, so like having like more contained, smaller arcs throughout a campaign as opposed to just like one giant large arc.
I think the question is if everyone wants to end the campaign at the end of an arc to end it.
Yeah, or well, structuring the story so that it potentially could end like after like each
Oh,
story is like if you get to the end of the fifth like level 1 to 5 arc, like structuring it is like that could be a contained story, but like the players can
yeah.
kind of continue on after that. Yeah, or having a short break between story arcs. I like being able to have that short break between story, or even like years between story arcs,
Mm-hmm.
where it's like the party, it's like minute. It is. It's kind of like doing mini campaigns where like the
Hmm.
party can then like split off and go their separate
Ugh.
ways and do stuff.
I don't know if I could run that. My attention would be so like all over the
Yeah,
place.
it allows for like it is. I mean, like go separate ways, but then like you do like a time skip of like
Yeah.
yeah, a couple years happen. What is everyone doing during this time? It's like and then something happens that calls everyone back together,
Yeah.
and
Yeah, Critical Role did that for the first
yeah,
campaign. They ended it. They did a year break after they kind of dealt with stuff, and they did like a year break in between the arc to kind of like see what everyone was up to in that time. That's cool.
yeah,
But I don't know if I'd want to do it at the end of every single arc because it might get a little monotonous for me at least as a DM, and also
hmm
because my attention is terrible.
mm
um, but like I've done the time skips before. We did that with City Below. Between the first and
mm
second arc, there is a year time jump because that's when people left the campaign, and
hmm
it was like, well, let's just do a time skip a year later, see what everyone gets up to, and that was fun to kind of like
yeah,
refresh things. But I don't know if I could do it at the end of every arc.
yeah,
But like, I do like the idea of like maybe like a halfway point kind of
hmm
time skip, and then you could kind of see what everybody does during that time period.
yeah.
Um, yeah,
Yeah, I think. I mean, for me, I think actually, like, I can kind of be a fan of that because it kind of reminds me of classic D&D in the sense of like it allows the characters to gradually. It lets the characters live in the world for a bit longer and
yeah,
have like stretch the story out a bit more. So like because there's kind of like there's a joke where depending on how long a campaign takes, like your character can go from level 1 to 20 over the course of like a year or
yeah,
something. It's like this wizard has studied for 70 years and he's only level 10. This
yeah.
wizard has like been studying for it's 8 months and now they're able to cast wish.
That's why I think I'm really excited for next campaign is because I'm not doing the whole like here's the narrative and the narrative is going to stick through the entire campaign. It's going to be like arcs. Like I'm doing
Mm-hmm.
arcs, um, but there's going to be more downtime in this
Mm,
next campaign, which I think is really important. Is downtime as well because you do get those
yeah.
breaks. Downtime is very important, and because of Beneath the Tide and it being an archipelago, there wasn't really a lot of opportunity for downtime because it's sailing,
Well, there was
sailing.
there was there was downtime. It was just it was just sailing.
So I'm really excited to like dive into that with like just downtime in general,
Mm-hmm.
um, and little arcs that aren't big narratives right away, and
Mm-hmm.
um, yeah,
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 yeah. I kind of like I like the sort of the opportunity for if you're doing like breaks between arcs. I kind of like the opportunity for doing like almost like little not resets, but just like opportunities for characters to kind of like almost reinvent themselves or like
yeah.
be coming at it from a new perspective or something. Where it's like, oh, we did this arc, we got this prestige, and then like now we are wealthier and like we have more just more of a reputation. So it's like, oh, the wizard went off and like opened up a magic school, and then like so when we come
Yeah,
back,
totally.
like everyone refers to the wizard as like professor, and like people know
Yeah.
them, and like now they're not just like a wandering wizard, they're like the professor at this magic school and
Hmm.
stuff. And like the I it reminds me back to because like early editions, like first and second edition D&D had wealth and titles built into the level up system,
Hmm.
and like it was kind of intrinsically tied to feudalism, where it's like if you were
Uh,
a fighter, and especially like fighters, like if you were a fighter, the progression, like because every I forget if it's every level or like every couple levels had like a different name and title to it that was like uh like squire, knight, lord,
hmm.
duke, and like up to like 20 level fighters were just kings. And it was like, yeah, you got like land and just like subjects and stuff, and it was like you kind of like naturally be like as you became this more powerful, influential person, you just kind of like got power and land, and that was a kind of a cool part of that. That was like, and it was hard to balance that too because it was kind of like
Oh yeah.
intrinsically like tying in the story thing, and like wizards would like get a tower and stuff, like druids, but I do like this idea of connect like how letting characters kind of like go off and connect into the world and like
Totally.
start to set up more of like
Home.
set up their own, yeah, set up like a home and like their own base, like individual base of operations. and then like when they come back and rejoin with their party, like they now have some like some different resources in a different
Yeah.
place, and the wizard can be like, oh, let's go check. Oh, we need to rest. Well, my tower's in the area. Let's go
Yeah.
stay there. And everyone's like,
Yeah.
what? You have a tower now? And they're like, yeah, come on in, check
That's
it
what
out.
that's yeah, that's really fun. And I think again, that it kind of harkens back to like my issues with Beneath the Tide. No matter how much I love that campaign, you're stuck on a ship. There really isn't
Hmm.
room for anyone to set up a home or a
Yeah.
base of operations or whatnot. And there was a base of operations set up, a manor, and I got blown up by the party. So, yeah, that's really cool. And
Well, we also had our other manor, which got flooded with devils.
yeah, so hey,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's I think yeah, you could easily structure arcs so the campaign can be ended at the end of an arc. But I don't know if I wouldn't want it to be a permanent ending
Hmm.
because there's probably going to be like still so much like people probably want to explore all their backstory stuff and they want to explore all this other stuff. So little breaks would be nice, but I don't know if I would end it after an arc.
I think the idea, the question is more about like structuring it so it could potentially
True.
end,
Yeah, yeah,
and I think that's the kind of thing, like that's the kind of thing that allows for some more flexibility, where it's like if you did that, it's like if everybody was like, yeah, that was a satisfying place for the story to end, like DM included, then it's like then I could kind of end there. But if there's disagreement on that, that gives opportunities to like shake things up a little bit.
yeah.
Where it's like one person's like, okay, I think I'm done. Like, or I like, if a person needs to leave for whatever
Yeah,
reason in your
totally.
game, then it's like, then that's a nice natural stopping. We with beneath no city below, like we had that
We
in
had
the
that. Yeah.
in the arc where it's like, okay, we had a natural break, and it was like the party composition changed in between.
Mm.
Or like even if you wanted, like if some people are like, I think my character's story is kind of done. Like I planned a really short character story, and I don't really know where they go from here. Like I think that I might just be done, and then like a person could even just
Yeah.
swap out a character, and then like when it comes back around, just like, hey, I'm coming in as this new character, and it makes like the other one's not coming back. They're done. Their story's taken care of. It's resolved, and like
Yeah.
now I'm gonna come in halfway through with a character whose story maybe makes sense to start at level 5.
Yeah. 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 That's fun too, like resolving
Yeah.
character story before the campaign ends.
Hmm.
I thought we were gonna do that with Hannibal. I thought learning all this family stuff was like a good, real good place to cap it off. So we shall see.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think, and yeah, and I think also with the like getting those breaks in there too, it's almost an opportunity. When you come into a campaign at the very beginning, there's that like there's the one of my favorite parts, honestly, of D&D is that collaboration between DM and player, where like the DM's like, here's the world, and the player's like, here's who I want to play, and then you
Yeah.
kind of like negotiate together to figure out the character backstory and
Yeah.
like create this thing together, where it's like you know it's part the world because it's how the player fits in the world, but then
Yeah.
it's like that character and how they fit in. And I think if you did that, like breaks between arcs, it kind of allows you kind of inject that process throughout the campaign. Then it's not just the very beginning. It's like it kind of goes to that looser, just like we don't have to play through this. Just like what are they doing? What's this? And they're like, oh, I kind of like for this to happen. You can kind of do that same like almost backstory building
Yeah.
back and forth, and it's almost you could even like it's almost like mini session zeros
Yeah.
through in at different places in the campaign, because you could be like and kind of like rechecking in. It's like, okay, this story ended. Would you like to uh, change direction? Would you like to figure something out? Like, would you like to? Your character kind of is storyless right now. Should we, pick a new story for them?
Yeah.
And you'd be like, yeah. And I think, like, to bring up
Yeah,
Critical
that's a
Role as
good
an
idea.
example, to bring up Critical Role again, like, Pike kind of had that
Mm-hmm.
when in between like their home game and like at the
Yeah.
very beginning of their first stream, where it's like Pike was this, the traveling cleric that was like trying to redeem her family name, and was
Mm-hmm.
pretty. I think we don't really get to see it, but seemed fairly one note. And then they have gets just absolutely just bisected by a Glabrizu,
Yep.
and like then they have this time break, and it's like she was like, yeah, no, I wanna switch things up. I want to have a significant change in character. That was a significant event, and that right there, where you can have like a significant event happened, the kind of thing that can change a person, because
Mm-hmm.
like those things happen, and then being able to like take that break to be able to kind of come in at like almost a 90-degree turn with your
Mm-hmm.
character direction, and be able to come in and be like, oh, something has happened, and then like it's like your character's meeting all over again,
Yeah.
where like you're kind of like, oh, so what, something's different, and we're trying to figure it out and talk, and it's like great opportunity for role play.
Yeah. And if not everyone is into the whole break stuff, it's cool for like yeah, like you said, characters to kind of take little breaks too.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's what they did in Critical Role with
Scanlan.
Scanlan. He left
Yeah.
for a bit, and then Sam brought in my favorite Vox Machina character, Terry and Darrington,
Yeah.
um, for a little bit, and that was cool because I like that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's fun.
Yeah. Fusing characters' backstory elements a small bit or a lot of a bit, depending on the story arc. Yeah. Oh, definitely. And I mean, we could talk. We could probably talk all day about just infusing
Yeah,
involving character backstory, because that's a
it's
whole.
hard
Hmm.
in some aspects and easy in some aspects. Like for Sam's character for next campaign, so easy because I got so much stuff to just go yes, but there's just so much stuff to like yeah, love it.
Hmm. Yeah, and like thinking about my son, thinking about Soldiers of the Lich Queen, it's like Soldiers of the Lich Queen is interesting because it's like I kind of gave you all half a backstory and then said,
Yeah,
okay, you have a blank check on the other half, but you kind of have this first half here.
I struggled so hard to think of something, so I didn't do anything.
I know, and that's the thing where it's like, and talking about that, where it's like that's one of the I think the biggest things for me when it comes to backstory is just different players have different expectations with backstory and different like just generally within the D&D community, backstory is kind of a controversial topic because some
Hmm.
people are just like, no, you should learn about your player through play. You should figure out who they are by playing them and like let things naturally evolve, like bare minimum stuff at the very beginning. And other people, myself included, are like, no, like extensive backstories are fine. It connects you into the world. They
Yeah,
don't have to be like they don't have to be ridiculous to be immersive and create a cool story for that person. And as a DM, I for one love in-depth
me
backstories because
too.
they give me so much to play with
Yep.
and like it gives me immediate hooks for a character to
Yep.
immerse the player.
Hmm.
Be like, I know you're going to be into this because it's about you.
Yeah, and as a DM, it also feels good when the players like take an interest in your world that you've built. When
Hmm.
like, well, they keep like they ask you questions about like an area they come from. It's like, oh, you care. Thank you for asking. Here's all this information I keep in my head at all times. Let me spew it out for you.
Hmm.
It just feels yeah, it feels really good when people are invested in your world and the story. So when you get
Hmm.
to mess with like huge backstory stuff, it's a lot of fun. And I think yeah, it helps keep the character kind of connected to the story. I think personally, but with Hannibal,
Yeah.
there was no backstory. And then I'm like, well, I could wrap that up into him like he just didn't have a life.
Hmm.
And you masterfully gave me something to get attached to the character, which is really great.
Yeah. Well, so yeah, because in my mind, basically, there's kind of like there's forward facing and backward facing elements of a
Hmm.
character when it comes to like starting. It's like a very backwards facing character is someone who's like really got an in-depth backstory that they're invested in. It's like that's why they're here. Once that's resolved, their story is over.
Yeah,
And then there's very forward facing characters where like Hannibal was a very forward facing character. He's just like, yeah, I'm just a guy. I'm just here to do this, and like let's just see where it goes.
yep,
And I think those are essential. Like a good mixture of those is essential for any party,
hmm,
because like if everyone is super invested in their own in like intense backstory, then it's like, well, you just have like four or five
hmm,
separate stories happening here, and then like whatever core thread is like running between them is just like an afterthought. Um, but like if you have everyone be forward facing, and everyone's just like, yep, I grew up in this village. I had a happy life.
yep,
I picked up my pa's sword from the war and then decided to go become an adventurer. It's like, and honestly, that one's kind of the easier one because like you can do that. That's a classic,
yeah,
first time party right there. Just like everyone's just like, yeah, I guess I just did this and I don't really have any dire backstory stuff. I just want to go adventure. And it's like you can create the backstory as you
yeah,
go with
totally.
it.
Which is fun
Having
too.
a hmm?
Which is fun too.
Oh yeah, oh definitely. And like and like I think a really important thing is kind of like if you have characters that are really invested in their backstories and stuff, kind of like transitioning them into having things they care about
Mhm.
in the present and
Yeah.
like the
Yeah.
story outside of that. Because like in my mind, like every character should kind of have a thing, should kind of have like
Mhm.
their wheelhouse, their thing they focus on, they're good at, their uh it's like what their story is about, and like transitioning that forward into something like discovering something new and someone, and that's life, you discover something new that you like or you're interested in, and you're just like, I guess this is my thing now, kind of stumbling into something new or building up and deciding you want to go for something new.
When should NPCs be killed and why?
Ooh, good one.
Antagonists, it should be when the if it's an antagonist, I think the party should at least have a hand in it. Possibly.
Hmm.
Sometimes antagonists get killed by their antagonists, which is fun. If you look at Critical Role, that happened. Uh, this current campaign.
Hmm.
Uh, hmm. It just depends.
Yeah, I think my answer it might sound like a cop out answer, but it's really the best I can go with is just when it makes a good story is
Hmm.
really what it comes down to. Like when it serves the story well. Um,
I killed off a lot of NPCs because the party pissed off a Rakshasa, and Rakshasas are vengeful. They go after the loved ones of the people who wronged them. So, yeah.
oh, and,
Oh,
specifically in the regards to the end of the campaign. Okay, okay. Yeah, Rakshasa one. Yeah, that was like, oh, that's a consequence. Good question. Like, who should just be like? I think that depends on the tone of the campaign
yeah.
you're going with.
For
Really, at
the
that point.
for the infernal battle in Dawnbreak Cove with Asmodeus, I was rolling for people fighting in Dawnbreak Cove while you guys were fighting Asmodeus, and the people that died were people that died in this combat encounter I had going on outside. So that was not random at all. That wasn't, or that was random. It wasn't me just deciding, oh, this person's gonna die. This person's gonna die.
Hmm.
Um, People dying of old age at the end of a campaign makes sense.
Yeah. I think that there is an impulse to like, just kill NPCs for just like kind of cheap emotional impact.
Yeah,
Be like, and just and then this person you care about, they're dead now.
and I've done that.
Yeah, oh yeah, it's definitely tempting, and it's it's an ingredient to the story.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily, don't overuse it, but like
Yo.
it's something that can definitely
Yeah,
be brought up at certain points. But
I've learned.
like,
I've learned. Don't overuse it.
mhm.
So, yeah.
um, I think, but especially like at the end of a campaign too, I think that like how it happens is a big part too. Like if there is like if there as an example of stakes, like if there's something where
Mm-hmm.
it's where something's like, oh yeah, this is a high stakes something, and like the players made a mistake or something like that, and it's like, I think clearly defining those stakes though, because you never want to like you never want to kill an NPC and have the player response be just like, oh, why'd you do that?
Yeah.
Like that's not cool. Like you want them to actually have the emotional reaction of the players, but like at the end of the day, be like, no, this is I'm responding at anger because it's a good story beat, not
Yeah.
just like, why'd you do that? Like if they're saying to you, the DM, like, why'd you do that? And it's like that's just not cool. Then it's like, okay, then yeah, that was probably an unnecessary death at that point.
Yeah.
But I think it does. It's kind of just like a thing it takes experience to figure out just like when it is a good idea
Yeah.
and when it's not a good
It's a.
idea.
It's a. It's a. It's a. Yeah. It's hard to figure out.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Like the classic, like the mentor figure, the
Oh
villain
yeah.
is about to do something and the mentor figure leaps in front and sacrifices themselves to buy the
Very
player's
Obi-Wan
time.
Kenobi. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like if you want to follow the hero's journey and like have the penultimate meeting with the villain where the party is not quite there yet, they don't have the thing they need to defeat them, so one of their friends or their mentor or another NPC is like, go, I'll hold them off, and they
Yeah.
like die valiantly, and their sacrifice is what pushes the party to motivate them to get to the very ending. It's like that's a classic way of killing an NPC.
Yeah. I think it needs to, for ending a campaign. It just needs to make sense.
Hmm.
Like for the battle with Asmodeus and everything, those people were fighting an army of devils. There were going to be casualties.
Hmm.
No one was. Not everyone is going to get out unharmed. If everybody got out unharmed, it would have felt cheap and unrealistic
Hmm.
because an army of devils
Yeah.
by the god of all devils. So
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very hard to figure out.
Hmm.
I still struggle with it. Like, is this a good time to do it?
And I think also like again the tone kind of matters
Yeah.
too at the very end. Like thinking about like how you want do you want your campaign to end on a funeral is kind of like
Yeah.
is kind of the thing you need to consider. Or because and especially and this is again where sequel campaigns come up. It's like if you're running a sequel campaign, then feel free to make your ending a little bit more of a downer. That's
Yeah.
okay
Totally.
because it's not the end. It's not the real end of the overall
Yeah.
story. It's like there's a sequel coming up that just gives us a good starting place. Uh,
And
one
if
of my last
oh, sorry,
oh,
continue.
I was gonna say my last home game that I ended up by killing the entire party.
Yeah, you did.
They all died. They won. They succeeded, but then it was like in the epilogue, the personal enemies that they had made throughout, kind of showed up and because they had basically they'd created like a utopian ending and everything, but it's like there's going to be a sequel, so it's like the personal enemies they had made and hadn't really completely finished off showed up and like assassinated them and like kind of threw gummed up the works of their plans, but like that's because there needs to be conflict moving forward into the sequel. And I told them I was like, yeah, when we move forward, eventually these characters are going to get resurrected like 200
Yeah.
years in the future by future characters. Like feel like don't worry, they will be coming back, but like for now they need to be dead. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like added a more somber feeling, but then it's like oh, but now we get to make new characters and like pick things up. There's that pick me up. It's like if that was the ending, like the total ending,
Oof.
that would just be a total downer. I'm like I'm not trying to just like make my friends sad for no
Yeah.
reason.
And also, like, if you're doing a sequel campaign and the some of the party are still around, there's a chance they could come back and just resurrect their friend that died.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because resurrection's a thing in D&D. So if people die, it's not generally always a kind of final thing unless the soul doesn't want to come back, or if the soul can't come back. Like Monkfish, he died in a fight with Asmodeus. He was one of the NPCs that died, and he was resurrected. So
Mm-hmm. Bjork's nice funeral.
I mean, that's the thing.
Nice.
He's dust, so
Mm-hmm.
you could do that. So yeah, you could do that.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, yeah, huh? A funeral as an ending of a campaign is really funeral. Everyone goes their separate ways.
Yeah. I mean, you know,
Real life.
yeah. Also, I think like if we're using pop culture as inspiration, which I do frequently. Um, Diamonds are key except for zealot barbs. Yeah. Um, if you're using pop culture as inspiration, like the Avengers movies are kind of like a classic, like they're a modern day D&D party going on a large adventure.
Yeah,
And the end of Endgame, which is the biggest, like kind of like would be a campaign ending,
yeah,
ended with a funeral. It's like three people died.
yeah. And it
So
was a
it's
good
like,
ending.
yeah. So, but that's because it kind of then like, okay, now we're gonna pick up and see where we go after this. It was like that
Yeah,
was the ending. It's like that would have been.
it
I don't know if
sucked.
that would have
That
been
would
the
have
greatest
sucked.
ending. Yeah.
But now we get like WandaVision and all, and then Far From Home picks up from the beats after Endgame, and
Hmm.
it makes Far From Home such a good story because of it.
Oh yeah, my favorite part is the like the very beginning where they have the terrible like PowerPoint memorial made by like with Getty. It has like Getty images
Mm-hmm.
like watermarked on them. Make the joke out of everyone dying. It's great.
Yeah,
Though I do think it's funny, getting a little off topic. It was like we just watched through all of the Marvel movies here, just like seeing Endgame, where it's like the world is basically over. There's just like, cars piled up and trash and garbage, and like the world is non-functional. It's like practically an apocalypse. And then you get to Far From Home, which is a few months later, and it's like everything's back to normal.
but
Everything's
then
fine.
and then you get to WandaVision, and they show the repercussions of everybody kind of snapping back, and it was just like,
Yeah, it's like these movies cannot decide. Like
yeah,
it's like one of these. It's like well, apparently we figured it out like 6 months later, but in the moment it was terrible.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, you could end a campaign on a funeral and make it a nice ending if it's
Hmm.
not the ending of like everything.
Yeah. Although if you did, if it was something where like one of the party like sacrificed themselves or did something and died during a fight and can't be resurrected, it's like that kind of makes sense. It's bittersweet. Someone died, but like that happens.
Yeah,
Endings aren't always happy, or aren't always totally happy.
of course. And they can make. I think that can also. I mean, sometimes if that happens early in a campaign,
Hmm.
it can make kind of pull the party closer together, like it
Yeah.
did in Critical Role,
Yep.
the second campaign,
Yep.
which is great. Uh, and yeah, sometimes it doesn't bring the party closer together. Sometimes the party kills each other by accident
Hmm.
with a spectral bear or a summoned bear.
What do you expect? This is a real bear.
Yep. So,
He resurrected you. It's
oh,
fine. You're all right. You're
I
okay.
was totally happy with that one. That was a good death. Loved
Oh
it.
my god, that'd been
So
so
happy
funny if that
about
had been
it.
permanent. It's so funny if that had been permanent.
It would have, and I would have been totally okay with it.
Yep, especially because if because she had that was like, oh, that's right, she went and bought those diamonds like
Oh, she
the other
didn't
day,
though.
basically. Oh yeah, that would have been really funny.
And I would
Everyone
have
else
been
comes back.
a okay with it.
Where's Hannibal?
Uh, he ran away.
You
um,
know that whole he's a prince thing. Well, he just went with his family. He's,
yeah.
oh, let's go talk to his family and say goodbye.
I would have been okay with that if that was Hannibal's ending. Stupid, but it makes a
Fitting,
good
so fitting.
story.
Mm-hmm.
How did he die? Did he die like a hero? Mm-mm. Nope.
Mm-mm, no, no,
Died
sir.
wrestling a bear.
In the woods.
Yep.
Was the bear attacking somebody? No, they summoned it so he could fight it. It could have been called off at any time.
Yep, but the druid said finish him off as the last
Put
command,
him out. Put him out of his misery.
which is kill him.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm not. I'm with. That's why it killed you.
Yeah,
I'm just saying.
so I'm okay with it. Yeah, I even said like, doesn't it get more attacks? Come on, let's do this.
Mhm. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, So, um, I got a question for you.
Yeah, yeah.
Backstory stuff, actually,
Oh yeah.
because you've been doing this in Soldiers of the Lich Queen. Because I think Ilvem's got a real secretive backstory.
Mm-hmm.
How do you handle weaving in a character's backstory who's got a lot of secrets?
Mm.
Can get it's kind of yeah, you know how to give them their backstory stuff, but if it's a really secretive backstory,
Mm-hmm.
it's yeah,
I I think part of it is, and part of it would help. What helps with like Ilvum's backstory is that Ilvum's backstory involves something that is already pretty present in the world
mm,
around. It's not like it's totally obvious. It kind of just like feels like just general world information, kind of just like blends into everything
yeah,
else when it comes up. So, I'll say things and I'll bring things up, and you might just be like, "Oh yeah, that's just like a thing that's happening in the world." But then, like, if you look over, Florian is like, sweating on camera because they're like, "Oh no,
yeah,
that's my thing," and it's like, but you have if they don't react or if they don't say anything, you have no idea. So it's kind of like just ways to reference it. Like, don't necessarily like call them out and be like, "Isn't that right? Doesn't that tie into
yeah,
your backstory? Why don't you tell everyone about that?" It's like, no, you just play it cool, bring the stuff up, make it feel like anything else. And I will say that like for a lot of things, I'm trying to also I like the story you're all working with. I'm shaping a lot of it around your backstory stuff.
mm,
Where it's like, oh, okay, like you know, for some things it's not necessary. Some things might not have necessarily happened if you hadn't made certain choices, and those choices are not related to the things that happened, but it just moved your character's attention to a certain place. It's like if
mm,
you guys hadn't decided to go south to Kukui, this conflict is a thing, but I wouldn't certain parts of it wouldn't be
yeah,
involved necessarily because I was like, oh, okay, this is a good way of kind of merging
mm,
like Hannibal's backstory stuff and Ilvum's backstory stuff and kind of bringing them into the same place so I can
mm,
start covering both of them at once. But otherwise, it just kind of feels, but like there's still kind of just like a main regular conflict for everyone else to be involved in.
yeah, cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
because Garrett said in chat had some troubles doing that with Noose because Noose had
Mm-hmm.
some secretive stuff in there, and it was really hard to figure out how to kind of do it. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Yeah. I think it's just like just drop. I think it's like because as a DM, like you drop hints, you drop hooks and stuff, and like sometimes the characters don't pick up hooks.
yep,
They're just like
yep,
so. I think that just kind of like drop the backstory, the secretive backstory hooks in with everything else, and that player will pick up on it. They will be like, oh, that's me. That is a special
mm-hmm,
thing related to me. I'm gonna pick up on that, and maybe I'm gonna sneak off on my own. to go talk to some people or do some things to, try and keep that to myself. But
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's important to like let people have their own little secrets too. I think I
hmm
think characters deserve to have their own secrets,
oh,
and it
definitely.
kind of sucks when I think everyone has people have secrets in real life,
hmm
so obviously characters are going to have secrets. They don't
hmm
need to divulge everything. If they want to, they can. But like, I think it's important for characters to have secrets too, and
hmm
yeah, learning how to weave those into the story is really nice. Um, yeah.
Yeah, it's almost like it's almost like when it comes to like how to, especially as a player, how to handle like other players' secrets.
Mm-hmm.
I think that there's almost like a meta willful ignorance that
Mm-hmm.
comes in of just like purposefully missing things or purposefully like not following up or purposefully coming like you as the player coming up with reasons for your character to miss stuff so like you can kind of like wingman
Yeah.
the other character, be like, oh yeah, my character's off doing this, because like you can totally do the opposite. It's like, oh, I guess I'm suspicious and I'm going to follow them, or like
No, which isn't
I'm
which.
also going I'm also interested in that, or I'm like the kind of stuff where it's like you can tell it's their thing and you're kind of like stepping on it to
Mm-hmm.
like try and get involved. And it's like, no, if a player, if a character's keeping a secret, like like if a player is intentionally trying to keep a secret, then like let them they'll
Yeah.
bring it up, and like sometimes it makes a good story for other people to get involved, but like at that point, for example, Ilvem getting kidnapped, it's like, okay, well now y'all are getting pulled into their backstory, you're gonna
Exactly.
have to investigate it. But that's what makes sense in the story. It's not like you know and like there's levels of reasonable suspicion and stuff. Like it would have
Totally.
been perfectly reasonable for one of you to go, or for like Sid to like write down the message on the wall they saw before Ilvum blasted it off the wall, to like
Mm-hmm.
be like, I'm gonna look that up because like they were really upset about that and I want to know more
Yeah,
about it. It's
totally.
like that makes sense. But you know
But I think with secrets, you have to ensure that a lot of it isn't coming from characters meta knowing that someone has a secret and wanting to get into it. And I
hmm
think it's important for the DM to be like, well, you don't know about that, so no.
yeah, yeah. And
And I've had to do that a few times over the course of
yeah.
like my DMing experience. Like, well, you're not there, you don't know what's going on.
hmm
Yeah.
yeah. I think, and like ideally, like for and when it comes to like skills to work on to be a good to become a good, make sure you're being a good player and been like a good party member and stuff, like I think there is sort of like a like, yeah, you can always check in out of character too, just like, okay, there's something secretive going on, do you want to like keep this as your thing, or
Yeah,
like
totally.
is this a point when you want to bring this into the party, and just like keep open communication. And if they're like, oh yeah, no, totally, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm gonna follow them because it's like they want me to, they're sneaking off and
Yeah.
I want to find out what's going on over there.
But also, it's kind of like it can be a double edged sword at times too, because sometimes the secret it can get in the way of parties
hmm
meshing and cooperating,
oh yeah.
which can be really frustrating, especially for a DM. As speaking from experience, I've had some of that where the secret kind of gets in the way and it makes the party not like
hmm
one of the characters will be like, "Oh, you're this close to learning my secret." It's like, well, then fucking tell us the secret so we
yep
can help you and work together. It gets in the way when that kind of stuff happens,
hmm
and it's really frustrating.
oh yeah. And also like
It's frustrating when you're DMing a party that doesn't want to work together because
hmm
there's secrets and nobody trusts each other. It's like,
yeah. Well,
yeah,
that kind of gets into the thing where it's like, uh, we're all here to play a game and everything, and the game kind of it's necessary for the party to work together. So if
mm-hmm.
you come to a point where you're like, well, like where it's like, well, okay, why aren't you like, to a reasonable degree, why aren't you working with the party? It's like, oh well, that's what my character would do. It's like, okay, then
Now,
either change your character or make a new one that will, because
yeah,
like you're kind of obstructing the game at this point. The game is now becoming about inter-party conflict, which is, if that's what you're into and everyone's down for it,
mm-hmm.
sure, but
Totally,
like probably not what everyone signed up for.
yeah. Like Hannibal didn't get along with anybody at the start, but I wanted to do like a gradual growth with it. I didn't want him to be
hmm
like a dick the entire time because that's not fun.
Yeah.
And this is someone who didn't have any social experience or social cues, so he's like, this is normal. Uh, but the chance to actually get to experience, to explore character growth is very
Hmm.
important for me as a player, but also as a dungeon master. But when you're like almost 30, say you're almost like 30 sessions in, and the one character is still refusing to cooperate,
Yeah.
at that point it's just like, okay, what's their goal here?
Hmm.
And if they're not like, yeah, at that point, the old version of Justin the DM comes in. I'm just gonna fucking kill your character.
And the other thing is like the person who's keeping secrets too. Like that can also be a, when it comes to what makes a good player, what makes a problematic player. Like that can be um, that can end up being like some spotlight hogging too.
Oh,
Is what it can come down
100%.
to, where it's like every single session this player is just like, I want to sneak off, I want to go do this thing, I want to do this thing by myself. It's like, okay, well, we're all sitting here, and like if you're taking up an hour of game time
Yeah.
every session to go play by yourself, it's like the rest of the party is just sitting them like, be conscientious of everybody else and like what they're doing. It's like a couple minutes, a little short things every once in a while, those are fine. But like trying to basically play a solo campaign by yourself where everyone's at the table, it's like don't do that.
And if I've had it where the one character wandering off all the time has I have done a little consequences with it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh no, you got attacked by a frost giant and kidnapped. Oh no.
Mm-hmm.
um, but also like that's a good skill for a DM to have as well is balancing. So if someone splits up and leaves for a bit to go do their own thing in town, it's a good skill to have where you can know when's a good time to switch over to the other character's viewpoints
Mm-hmm.
and do that balancing act. Otherwise, you do have an hour of just one person
Yep.
fucking about, and that's not
Mm-hmm.
fun for anyone at the table.
Yeah. And like I think there's something to be said for like when you're not like a streaming setting like this one, where we have a regular schedule and it's like this is the time slot, is fairly restrictive for things like that too, where
Oh,
it's like
100%.
if you don't have that, if you're just playing in a home game, it's really easy to just be like, it's like, especially if it's at the end of a session, it's like something happens, or it's like, okay, we're actually going to pause on you for the rest of the session, but then we can meet up sometime during the week and just the two of us play through. We could do hours of just like what your
Oh
character is
yeah.
doing,
Mm-hmm.
and then like play through that, and then it's like once we resolve it and we come back for the whole session, then we like come back together because for everybody else they were just like sleeping. You're doing 8 hours of adventuring, they're sleeping, the time commitment like out of game doesn't match up there, so like we're just going to do this separately, and like you can do
Mm-hmm.
that in a home game. It's harder to in a stream game.
Yeah. I mean, I think you could do it in a streamed game. It's just really hard.
Yeah, you'd have to like you could like schedule, I mean, because yeah, you'd have to like schedule something else during the week, because like you're not going to want to be like, all right, nobody else show up next week because we're just going to take you're going to take a week off, because it's literally like, well, I wanted to play it this week.
Yeah, it's yeah.
Yeah.
Or yeah, yeah. That's so yeah. I think it's good to have like that balancing act of like if they're split up, make and try to give everybody the same amount of time. Uh, and I've only really had those issues when it's like downtime sessions when someone's in a city. Everyone
Mm-hmm.
kind of wants to split up and do their own thing. It's a
Mm-hmm.
little hard to juggle it. So I find myself going, "Hey, so what are you doing around town?" And try to like, "Come on, what do you want to do? Help me, help me, help
Mm-hmm.
me, help me, help me, help
Yep.
me, help me."
Yeah. I
um,
think
yeah.
I think that splitting, that kind of splitting though, like some splitting the party, I think, especially in social situations or like exploration or downtime, is important,
Mm-hmm. Oh,
because then
100%.
it helps players who, because especially you're usually in a group setting. There's some characters will just kind of stand in the back, they won't say anything, they'll just kind of like go with the flow, and then they'll participate in combat. And when you split up the group and have everyone be individuals for a bit, and it's like, okay, well, what do you want to do? Like, what does it sound like when you're in charge?
Yeah.
Because there's no one else here. It's just like, what?
Mm-hmm.
Like, let's actually hear your voice. Let's hear you like do some stuff. And then I think that really helps for like a sense of immersion and getting like, you know, feel playing your character more. If you just have a chance to play them by themselves, not getting overshadowed by the rest of the party,
Mm-hmm.
and like when you come back together, it gives you more of an opportunity to be like, oh, I want to do this, or I want to try that, or I think we should do this, and like get more of a voice when you're a full party again.
Yeah. Um, and I am quite. I know it's a divisive topic or a divisive thing, but I am not opposed to splitting up the party in dungeons either,
Oh yeah.
because that makes dungeons very exciting to me.
Hmm.
Because I mean, It's fun,
Yeah.
and
I would,
it's and I know it's like it's one of those things that people say don't do it.
mm-hmm.
You shouldn't do it. It's like, well, if you know how to balance it, it's a lot of fun for the players because usually, like sometimes when you're in a dungeon, one player might kind of take the spotlight in a dungeon because their abilities can kind of
Mm-hmm.
ease things up. But if you split them up, it makes everybody kind of have to.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't mean like split them up so everyone's by themselves in the dungeon.
Right.
Split them up like maybe if it's a party of five, a group of two, group of three. If it's a party
Mm-hmm.
of six, group of three, group of three. If it's a
Mm-hmm.
party of four, group of two, group of two. That's what's fun.
Oh yeah.
And maybe it can help get people working together who are secretive and combative with others.
Yeah. Or just like put people together that otherwise don't usually work together, and like give them a chance to hang out and get some
Exactly.
scenes together.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and like especially when it comes to, I think split party combat I found is actually
It's a
incredibly
lot of
easy to
fun.
run.
And it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, because all you do is you just have everybody, you get them both started at the same time, have everybody roll initiative,
Mm-hmm.
run it like one encounter, but just like have kind of like what's going on in like two separate areas. So it's like you just still go through the initiative order normally, like it's one encounter, but then you just are bouncing back and forth
Yeah.
between the two, and it works fine.
Yeah. Like the Frostworm.
Yeah, exactly.
In Beneath the Tide. Yeah, those two separate encounters happening at the same time.
Hmm.
And then it merged into one encounter.
Hmm. Yeah, and then that is an opportunity is great because then it's like, oh, these things are happening at the same time. A fireball goes off or something, like we can where like, oh, we can hear that and like find each other. Like one party can start running away and like merge the other encounter
Mhm.
into it, or like party can finish and then go like join up with the other one. Lots
And
of options.
and if your party wants to like do an espionage mission and kind of like gather information, really hard to do in big numbers because
Yeah.
the group stealth checks there's a higher
Hmm.
chance of failure. And like in group stealth checks, like a natural one counts as two fails.
Yep.
So if you want to do like little espionage stuff like that, you kind of have to split the party. Get like the sneaky folks to kind of go do their thing, and
Hmm.
yeah, I'm all for splitting the party, especially when it lets other players like kind of highlight their abilities when they usually don't get to.
Hmm.
Um, Here's a fun question. Totally not related to what we're talking about, really.
Okay.
What's your favorite class to play in D&D?
Ooh. Oh, that's tough. I think I'm trying to think if I don't know if I've played all of them yet. I don't think
I
I've ever
haven't.
played a Blood Hunter.
Oh, I have so much fun.
Hmm.
I played a Blood Hunter in a
Let me see.
Ravenloft campaign.
Ooh, nice. I haven't played an Artificer yet either.
Uh,
Yes, 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 yes. I don't think I've actually ever played a monk now that I think about it.
Me neither,
Huh.
really.
Played a paladin, played a ranger, played a rogue.
Oh
Played
no,
a
I
sorcerer,
played. I played a monk. I played that turtle.
Oh yeah, you did.
But
Yeah, you
like,
did.
I mean, like long term, because you kind
Right.
of develop, you kind of learn the class a little bit better, and you get time to marinate in the class. So I've only
Hmm.
really played three classes long term.
Hmm. I think. Let me. It's probably gonna be a top. Honestly, I'm kind of like it's for me. It's like the big classic three are kind of all tied: fighter, rogue, wizard. Because like they're all so kind of like distilled
I played four.
in their what?
I just realized I played four, not
Okay.
three. Yeah.
They're kind of like distilled in what they do. It's like fighter. A lot of people think fighters are boring. I take that as a challenge
Hell
to
no.
like make them
They can
interesting.
be
Yeah,
fun. Yeah.
yeah. And then rogues, like I'm a big like when it comes to I think rogues are tough because like rogues are one where like if you want to make the most of their abilities, you kind of do have to be like pushing for your own plan and like doing your own thing.
Yeah.
Like especially at low levels where you're doing like I mean when you have if you can get your sneak attack, you're essentially doing great sword damage
Mm-hmm.
as a because in terms of the d6s you've got. So like you can do some really fun stuff with them, especially just like sneaking around and like
Mm-hmm.
assassinating people like in a dungeon or something. And then just like wizard,
Yep.
just all of the spells.
Wizard.
Wizards are so much fun.
Yeah. So I've played four classes long term. I played a death domain cleric for a little bit, but I didn't. It wasn't enough time to kind of like marinate myself in it. But like there's Hannibal, Triton Wizard, who was an artificer, but the wizard. I had much
Yeah,
more fun with the wizard.
we switched that over. Yeah.
I did a blood hunter, a tiefling blood hunter in a Ravenloft campaign who killed my old character because I got bored of my old character
Oh, nice.
because the party wasn't trusting him just because he was a kobold, which kind of sucked. It's like,
Hmm.
oh no, kobolds are bad. Just trust my character. He's a cool guy. He's a glamour bard who is a professor at a college. Like, just
Oh, that's awesome.
yeah. And then everyone's like, well, and then instead of like me leaving the campaign, I was like, well, okay, maybe I'll just make a character who you guys like because he's not a kobold.
Hmm.
So I brought in a tiefling Order of the Lycan Blood Hunter who decapitated my kobold. And then my character was then wanted for killing said kobold, and because he was a werewolf, I'm like, what the fuck? Like,
Can't win.
yeah. So I left that campaign pretty quick, but well, not quick, like 6 months in. But yeah, wizard. Longest I played a character, but wizard is just so much fun. You can build wizard towers, Galder's
Yeah.
Tower. You can make magnificent mansions, but bards can do that too. But wizard is just cool.
You just get so many spells is the
And
thing.
everyone's like,
And
"Oh,
like,
you have to learn your spells through a spell book." Cool. So
yeah,
cool. I'm so into it.
that just gives you, well, again, because you still learn two spells a level, which
Yeah,
is I think more than like the same amount as everybody else.
but
And
I
then you
can
have that.
I can
ex-
I can learn extra
Yep. Which of course, when as a DM, then like the DM has to then actually consider
spell books for treasure, or
spell books for spell books
scrolls.
and scrolls, like putting them in. It's like, oh yeah, like oh, if, like also just making sure you really have like if you're having doing an enemy wizard or something as a boss fight, you really have to have their entire spell book locked down. It's like, oh, I pick up a spell book.
Yoink.
What's in it? Yep. It's like, what's in it? And it's like, oh, well,
Oh yeah,
probably this, and this.
yoink. Yeah,
Yep.
I'm having so much fun playing a wizard. Uh, and then there's always the people who okay, least favorite class.
Ooh. Oh, also I see in the chat. I played an Arakocra monk
Yeah,
for a few
Gary
seconds.
played
Ooh.
Eric Hawker Monk. It was really cool.
What was the path, the subclass?
Way of Shadows. I think it was Shadow Monk.
Ooh, that's a cool combination.
I
I
could be
love
wrong.
playing like I love doing like anything that can fly, or any race that can fly combined with Sun Soul.
Fairy
Because you're
Sun
just
Soul
playing
Monk.
yeah, you're just playing a Dragon Ball Z character.
Imagine having your spellbook disintegrated. Yeah, that's why you make backups.
Yep, yep. That's what. Yeah, 'cause Hannibal has that crystal
I
you
have
can
a
use as a
crystal
backup spell. But okay, least favorite class.
ranger.
Ooh.
Ranger gets a lot of flack, but I think it's just because of the Beastmaster. There's actually a lot
Yeah.
of there's a really cool Ranger subclass. The Swarmkeeper's cool.
Oh yeah, no, I wanna play. What is it called? What is the new dragon one
The
from UA
Ascendant.
called?
There's the Ascendant Dragon Monk.
Is it like the Drakengard or
Yeah,
something like?
Drakengard or something.
Yeah, those are cool as hell looking.
You get basically like a dragon companion or
Drake
something.
Warden,
Yeah.
Drake Warden. That's it. Yeah, you get, and it's like I was like, it's like this is just Beastmaster but better because it's a dragon
Oh,
and like their stats are better.
and I played a rogue once. I played a rogue warlock multiclass. Uh,
Ooh,
who is a turtle who was in Beneath the Tide. I put my NPC into as an NPC.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
He was a great old one warlock and a swashbuckler rogue. It was really cool.
Nice.
Least favorite class?
In terms of least favorite, I think I might have to go with
Artificer.
yeah, because you
At
used to.
least
I remember.
I think it's because like the artificer's capabilities don't really open up until you get to like you start to level up a little better.
Yeah,
Uh, sorcerer can be good.
I was gonna say I think sorcerer might be my least favorite, just because I'm looking at the class list right now and just like kind of everything else. Like I've had a great time playing all of these, but sorcerer, I'm always like anytime I get to sorcerer, I'm just like, yeah, but I could just play a wizard.
Yeah.
Like why would I play a sorcerer? Like yeah, they get cool stuff
Like
and like
meta magic, the meta magic stuff is nice, but now other casters can get meta magic feats to
yep,
get the meta magic ability. So it's like, well,
yeah, and it's also like well, and meta magic is like okay, it's either like minor increase, it's like pretty good increases to like damage and DCs and stuff, or like you can do still casting, or like these modifications to it. But I'm like, yeah, but also like I could just be a wizard.
wizard's favorite class.
Yeah, and it's like the subclasses, because like the subclass is really the biggest difference. Like
Mm-hmm.
without the subclasses, wizards and sorcerers are almost identical except for like the sorcery points. So like, but wizard sub or sorcerer subclasses never really like I don't know. They always seem like a little disjointed to me,
Mm-hmm.
and that's just for me. But like
And
wizard subclass.
there's also like there's a skew in subclasses too because I think you can kind of see which classes Wizards of the Coast like designing for.
Yeah,
Because if you look through subclasses, Warlock doesn't have a lot, which
yeah.
sucks. Because Warlocks are so cool. That's why I'm so excited for like the Undead Warlock. coming out,
Mhm.
and then rogues have a few.
Rogues have a fair amount.
Sorcerers have not many.
I think do they not? I thought they had.
I don't think
I
they
thought
have. They
they
haven't had any new options since, like official options since Xanathar's Guide.
Yeah, because they've got Aberrant Mind, Clockwork Soul,
Mm.
Divine Soul, Draconic, Shadow Magic, Storm Sorcery, Wild Magic. Yeah,
Subtle casting can't be counterspelled. Uh,
that's
correct.
true. Yeah. You can also when it comes to messing with counterspell, it's like there are some very specific wordings in there.
Mm-hmm.
Like you need to be able to see the person.
Yep.
So like if you use darkness,
Yep.
then that can mess with it.
And innate spellcasting. If the innate spellcasting says no spell components, verbal, material, or somatic at all,
Hmm.
because there's some innate spellcasters creatures that have all three.
Yeah.
They just can't be counterspelled in general because you don't
Yep.
see them casting. They stand still and cast a spell.
Yeah. It just happens. Yeah.
So yeah, innate spellcasting is pretty brutal for people who with counterspell because you can't counterspell
Hmm.
innate spellcasters. Yeah.
Yeah. There's also just like you can just like breaking because you need to be able to see the caster, not the effect
Correct.
for counterspell. So it's like if you want to fireball a wizard's party, all you have to do is like step behind a pillar so they can't see you,
Mm-hmm.
and then just like aim it or out from around the pillar so that the radius hits the wizard. They can't counterspell that.
Or be more than 60 feet away.
Yeah, that's the other way. The 60-foot difference is also the biggest one. It's like you're out of range, can't do it.
Yep.
So yeah, there are ways to mess with counterspell because otherwise counterspell can be very very popular.
You can
Very
counterspell.
very
You can counterspell a counterspell,
Yes, you can.
which is fucking annoying.
And if you have enough wizards in an encounter, you can get a lot of counterspell, 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 counterspell.
That
counterspell,
happened.
counterspell.
That happened in this campaign in Critical Role because the warlock has counterspell somehow. I think the warlock has it somehow.
Okay.
And it was counterspell, counterspell, counterspell. It was like, oh man.
As long as there's enough people in the
Whiplash.
encounter with reactions, yeah.
I think wizards can also like. I think late game wizards are like powerful.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I love wizards. Then again,
I think.
every class is overpowered if you think about it.
Oh, they're supposed to be, yeah.
Yeah. Um,
So, you gotta know which part to lean into is the thing. Although I will maintain that clerics get really bad upper level spell
They do.
support. That is a thing that I wish would be fixed.
make more ninth level spells for warlocks or clerics.
Yes, please more ninth level cleric spells because they are not good. There's like 4 of them, and it's like, well, you want to heal or move people. That's
Give them
it.
like like give them brutal ninth level spells. Like
Yeah, it's like I'm like I'm wielding the wrath of the gods over here, and all I'm getting is like true resurrection. Fast heal,
I'm wielding the
fast heal.
power of life and death. Give me
Yeah,
stuff that influences maybe death a little bit.
yeah.
I
Or
mean,
even
you can
like
cast inflict wounds at ninth level, but like
right. Well, but yeah, upcasting doesn't count.
no, give them like cool ninth level spells.
Yeah,
Like go dip into old D&D stuff and maybe convert some of the epic magic, like the 10th level spells to ninth level maybe, or
yeah.
bring back 10th level spells. That'd be so cool.
Hmm. I think also just anything leaning into like just like a ninth level buff spell even could be good. Like
Oh
ninth
yeah.
level, like something that provides like a benefit for or like changes the terrain or something. Like we've got spells like earthquake and meteor swarm and stuff like that changes the
That's what I
terrain.
mean. That's why I love Wizard Meteor
Yeah.
Swarm.
Oh yeah, wizards get the best spell support
Power word
because
kill, wish.
the company is called Wizards of the Coast.
That's why I just like homebrewing spells. Like
Oh yeah,
I should start homebrewing some ninth level spells for clerics because they don't get shit.
yeah, that is an issue.
Um, yeah, devils, fire, don't mix. Firestorm. Yeah, Firestorm's a good spell. Um,
Yeah.
oh,
Oh yeah.
here's a fun question.
Okay.
Favorite spell?
Ooh, okay. That's a tough one. My answer might change because, like, as I play more spellcasting characters, but
Fireball.
Fireball's a classic one. Fireball's. I like how they
I think
pretty much.
inflict wounds might be one of my favorites too.
That's a good one. I like how they basically said, like, Wizards of the Coast, because if you look into, I forget which book it is that put in rules for spell creation.
Xanathar's Guide, I think.
Yeah, if you read Xanathar's Guide, like, and read the rules for spell creation, they're like, you may notice that if you put
or
lightning
the
bolt-
DMG.
one of them, yeah. The section I remember the section though says like you may notice if you take the stats for Fireball and Lightning Bolt and put them into our spell creation system. Technically speaking, they should be more powerful than a 3rd level spell, but they're iconic spells. So like some spells are just better than others in their level. They're just
There's a
not balanced.
there's a reason Hannibal likes using Fireball because it's
Yeah.
fucked.
Yep. Yeah, Evocation Wizards with Fireball. Oh, such a good.
Yeah,
such
because
a
you can
fun
prevent your
combination.
friends from getting hurt.
Yep.
Yeah.
I did play one at one point. We completely misunderstood uh, how it worked, and we didn't realize it was restricted to evocation spells. Thought it was like all damaging spells. So I would use Flaming Sphere, and I was trying.
Oh,
I
that's a
would
good
like
spell, too.
exclude people. Yeah, I would exclude people from it, but like technically you can't do that. It just affects everything around it.
Yep. And you can, like bonus
Um,
action ram it into things.
Yep. I'm trying to think. What is
Power
it?
word kill.
That's a,
Power
it's-
word
I feel like
stun.
that is a good one.
Divine Word's a good spell too, because anything
Stunning
below a
is-
certain amount of hit points just dies.
Yeah.
And that's not a 9th level spell. That's like a 7th level spell.
Wait, which one is it?
Divine Word. I think it's 7th.
Oh
or
yeah, that's
8th.
right. That's right.
That should be a 9th level spell for clerics. Divine Word, because nah, but like anything under
I mean,
50 hit points just dies.
There should be a ninth level like version of it basically.
Mass counter spell. That'd be funny.
That would be. I'm trying to think because like it depends. They're all like that's the thing is they're kind of all good.
What's the worst spell? Witch Bolt.
What? Witch Bolt's great. The low levels.
At low levels, yes.
Yeah, because you guarantee D12 of damage every round. That can. Hey, I played an encounter where we're like level 2 or something. I forget. We were like level 2 or 3. I forget what level. We were up against a werewolf, and it was just like none of us had silver or magic weapons. None of us could do anything against the werewolf, but we had the wizard, so we just had the wizard cast Witch Bolt, and everybody else formed a human
funny.
wall and just kept using the dodge action to just play keep away with the werewolf.
Animate objects might be one of my favorite spells.
Oh, that's a good one.
Especially when you cast it on a wagon.
Yeah.
Bigby's Hand is a great spell.
Ooh, Bigby! I would love to have a character that has Bigby's Hand.
Hannibal's gonna get Bigby's Hand, and I'm very excited.
Mm-hmm.
If Hannibal gets to that level.
I think a Magnificent Mansion is just a fantastic.
It's a good one. Hannibal's getting that.
That
too,
is
so.
That one is. I think that's the one that makes you feel the most like a wizard.
I'm so yeah.
Because it lasts for 24 hours. It's enormous. It's like a full man. It's like, bam, here's my man. Like I have a base of operations now that I can just pop up whenever.
Best cantrip is Eldritch Blast.
It's really good.
Eldritch Blast and Firebolt.
Yeah, I mean, Toll the Dead is also incredible.
Toll the Dead's great. Mage Hand's great.
Oh yeah.
I think one of the worst spells is a cantrip. I just don't remember which one I'm thinking.
Oh, it's definitely True Strike.
True Strike. There it is.
True Strike's the worst. True Strike is terrible.
There we go. True Strike. True Strike is the worst spell. You heard it here first.
It's not first. That's not. People have been saying that.
Yeah, true.
It's
bad. Real bad. It's real bad.
There's a reason.
I don't think I've ever ran a game where someone's taken True Strike.
I think I've taken it before, but I've never used it because there's no situation where it comes up.
Yeah, it's poop.
Yeah, well, it's because little bit of history here. Back in 3.5 D&D, True Strike was a first level spell because there weren't cantrips, there were 0 level spells, and they were worthless. The idea of making 0 level spells actually functional is a new concept that I love. You used to just be like, oh, wizard's out of spells. Use your 1d3 damage from Ray of Frost that doesn't scale with the level. But True Strike used to be a first level spell, and what it did was you cast it, and your next attack is made with a plus 20 bonus to hit. It was True Strike. It's gonna hit, basically. Yeah, it was like you can hit, like it was pretty much like guarantees a hit every other round. It's like that's helpful.
That's why I like Firebolt. Like I like the cantrips that scale for damage, like Firebolt, 2d10.
Oh yeah.
I'm at like 2d10 for Firebolt right now on Hannibal. Mm-hmm. That's good damage.
Oh yeah, fire. And that's the interesting thing about managing spells as a spellcaster as you level up, is like the usefulness of spells shifts as you have them. Like cantrips get way more useful because it's like, oh yeah, I could cast what's a first level damaging spell? Like I could cast Burning Hands that does 3d6 fire damage, but once I'm level like 10, my Firebolt does 3d10.
11th level, yeah, it does 3d10.
Oh yeah, 11th level.
That's
3d10.
That's good.
Yeah, that's better than a first level spell in some degree.
Yeah, because the average of 3d10 is not terrible.
Oh yeah, no.
So yeah.
But the cantrips get better, and then first level spells kind of get worse. But there are some amazing first level spells that are like more useful at higher levels than they are at low levels.
Yeah.
Like shield as a first level
Shield's
character,
great. Mm-hmm.
like, but as a first level character, you're not going to want to use it that much because it's like that's your first level spell.
Mm-hmm.
But
Bane.
as like, yeah, Bane, but like shield as a 20th level character, it's like, oh, +5 to AC is useful all the time, and I've got all these worthless first level spell slots I'm not doing anything with. I can throw these out all day.
A good first level spell is also ceremony, and it's
That's a good
not
one.
it's not not a lot of people use it, but it's got some
Yeah,
really good stuff in there.
yeah,
Chromatic orb
uh,
is a great first level spell.
yeah. Absorb elements is
Is it,
is so good that it's because absorb elements is the difference between a wizard dying and surviving when a dragon attacks.
yup.
First level spell. It's like it doesn't like who cares about the extra damage on your next melee attack? The fact that you get resistance to a damage type for
Yeah.
free.
There's a really fun first level spell in the Wildmount book called Gift of Alacrity,
Mm-hmm.
and for 1 minute, it's not concent or for it takes a minute to cast, but it lasts for 8 hours.
Mm-hmm.
Not concentration. When you cast on a creature, they can add 1d8 to its initiative rolls.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
So it's
That's
like
nice.
yeah, it's fun.
Mm-hmm.
So if someone who's like kind of shit at initiative but kind of needs to go first to like
Yep.
help, boom, Gift of Alacrity. It's really fun. But that is yeah, divination spell. What else? Hellish Rebuke is always fun.
That's true. That's true.
Hunter's Mark is like the spell a ranger needs.
Yeah, that's true. Although, oh no, I just saw something. Another ranger spell.
Magnify Gravity? What?
Yeah, it's like you have to look through the spell list every once in a while as they add new books. Be like, wait a minute,
Yeah.
what? Since when does this exist?
Yeah, the Wildmount book added a spell called Magnify Gravity as a first level spell.
Mhm. Where is it? It's a new one. Zephyr Strike.
Zephyr Strike, yeah.
That one is also incredible, because your movement doesn't provoke attacks of opportunity, and then once before the spell ends, you can give yourself an advantage on an attack roll, and then deal an extra D8 of force damage on the hit,
Yeah.
and then you get an extra 30 feet of walking speed. It's like that's pretty good.
I also think like one of my favorite things to homebrew is spells.
Oh yeah.
Because you can just think of anything. Like,
Mhm.
I got all my homebrew spells. Cobb's Magnificent Corn. It's
Yep.
basically Good Berry, but for wizards. I have, like, one where people's arms and legs swap places. Like, a lot of stuff in here. Like, yeah, homebrewing spells is a lot of fun. Yeah. Um, we, so, I remember last time we did this, we talked about our favorite creatures. Flump is one I forgot.
Oh, they're great. Yeah, flumps are great.
I want a flump as a familiar.
Gotta find one.
I know. I'm gonna. When we go to the Underdark, I'm gonna find one.
Yeah, go to the
And
Underdark.
I'm gonna tell it to be my best friend.
All right.
Because
Um,
flumps need to be familiars. They need to
oh
be
yeah,
an option for familiars.
they really do. We'll make it happen.
Abyssal chickens are an option.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah. I think for me, so thinking about it, like invisible stalkers are really fun, like to use as like
Yeah.
accompaniment to somebody. Like I love the idea of like a boss or like like a leader type, villain who keeps himself surrounded by invisible stalkers. It's like you have no idea, and you try to like run up and attack him, and you just run into an invisible stalker, and you find out he's got 8 invisible stalkers around him at all times.
They can be scary for like lowish level parties too.
Oh yeah.
Because they're invisible, like indefinite, unless someone casts
Yep.
fairy fire on them.
Yeah. You have to bind them to hit them with fairy fire.
Yeah, but fairy fire is like an area of effect, so you can guess with it and drop
That's
it in
true.
an area.
Unless they're like moving and attacking and moving and stuff too.
Yeah, they're in. I know Garrett's in chat, but I'm not going to spoil it too much. But in Rime of the Frostbane, they scatter invisible stalkers all throughout the adventure. So you could just like wander into some invisible stalkers, and they just go, "Hey, what's up?" And they do 2d6 plus 3
Yep.
when they hit, and they have advantage because they're invisible.
Yep.
So I love invisible stalkers. Intellect Devourers are a great low CR monster.
Mm-hmm. I love one of my favorite D&D memories is looking my friend showing me the 2nd edition monster manual and it's like they have pictures for everything, and it's like they're in a frame, and it's like the picture of the invisible stalker is just an empty rectangle. There's just nothing there.
And now the picture of the invisible stalker is like this kind of
Wind
weird
demon.
wind with a creepy face,
Yeah.
like killing somebody.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I also love Nothics. Those are fun.
Yes, they are
Just
wizards
like,
who get to kind of who try to become liches and they fuck up and they become Nothics. I
yep.
think that's the lore on them.
Yeah. It's
Yeah,
and like the extra ability it has. Nothics were one of my first experiences with fifth edition because we were.
weird. Are
It
you
was.
talking about weird insight?
I think so. Yeah, the thing where they can they
Learn like
learn your secrets by looking at you.
yeah,
Yeah.
love Nothics.
Yeah, because I think my first time ever playing fifth edition was my friend got the like before it I forget if it was like before it came out or like when it was coming out, got the or I think it was I think it was the play test.
The SRD.
I think no, it was like the
Oh, the
fifth. It was like
playtest. Yeah, yeah.
the play test where like came in a box. It came like 4 pre-made characters, and it was like the first bit of Minds of Fandelver.
Oh yeah, when you buy the D&D fifth edition starter kit, you get that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
So we got that like before fifth edition came out to like try it. I'm like, okay, what is this going to be? And I remember one of the first things I loved was like they put the first 5 levels of level up information on the back of the character sheet, like in a box this big.
Yeah.
I was like, that all fits right there. It's like, oh look, I leveled up. This is all that happened. That's great. I don't have to like pull out a spreadsheet to level up like I used to.
Yep.
But I remember there was a Nothic in like the first dungeon. Like the DM was like, okay, I need everyone to tell me a secret at the beginning. It's like that's a pretty common thing for DMs to ask for in one shots.
Hmm.
And like we get in there and it starts like telling like we're making saves and like hearing our secrets being said from the shadows and stuff. It's like this is incredible.
Yeah, I love Nothics. That haunted house adventure that I have on my Patreon.
Mm-hmm.
Guess what's haunting the house?
Is it a Nothic? Nice.
Yeah, because the wizard who is in the house, he was experimenting with the weave,
Mm-hmm.
and when he was experimenting with the weave, he killed all of his family and all the people who were there for like a masquerade ball by accident.
Shit.
And because of his experimenting with power, he started to kind of like get twisted, and
Mm-hmm.
that's how Nothics get made. As wizards who dabble too much, or if uh, they fuck up.
Mm-hmm.
So he became a Nothic, and all the people who he killed, their flesh all like melded together, and they became a gibbering mouther who lives in the basement of the house.
Uh,
So when people are walking through the house, they hear "Ah, yes," like whispers and
mm-hmm.
screams, and it's like, what the fuck? It's haunted. No, it's not. It's a Nothic and a gibbering mouther in the basement.
I once for my last campaign, because one of my other favorite things to do is take monsters that are like lower CR and then bump them up, like
Hmm.
add stuff onto them to make them
Yeah,
more powerful.
that's my favorite thing to do. One of my favorite things to do.
I did a duo encounter where it was a Nothic. It was a powered up Nothic that had levels in Rogue,
Oh,
and then paired up with a more powerful Medusa.
that's fun.
So and the levels of so the pairing there was like the Medusa, like you have to avert your gaze to fight the Medusa, but then that means that the attacks against you have advantage because you're trying to not look, and then that means that the rogue there can then come in and get sneak attacks
Oh,
on you.
and Nothics also have that rotting gaze ability where
Yep,
if they
I
look at
upgraded that.
and they don't and the people don't have to look at the Nothic to get affected by the rotting gaze. The
Hmm.
Nothic just has to look at that when they take like 3d6 necrotic damage if they fail to
Yep.
save.
Yeah, and I
That's
upgraded
brutal.
that too.
That's
Yeah,
brutal.
that's one of the things when it comes to encounter design, like for coming up with like hard encounters. It's like you don't necessarily have to make stuff like ridiculously powerful. You just have to do stuff where like they play off each other. Where it's like, oh, okay, yeah, like a basilisk or Medusa or something.
Yep.
That's a classic fight because it's a fun thing. It's like you have to avert your gaze. You have to figure out a creative way to look at them or something. And it's like, wouldn't it be awful if there was an enemy in this fight that
Oh,
was
I'm
better,
stealing
like
this so bad.
had an advantage against you if you were averting your gaze. And it's like stuff like that where
Yeah, I'm
you just
stealing
think
that.
about like you just think about what kind of course of action you take one monster, figure out like what course of action it's going to push the players into, and then just place another monster right there where it's like that's what they want you to do.
One of my favorite monster combinations is a Bodak
Mm-hmm.
and the Lonely.
Mm-hmm.
That one's
I
fun.
hate I have a personal vendetta against Bodax because one of my characters that I really enjoyed playing died in 3.5.
Bodax are scary.
Yeah, I think they used to. I think if I remember correctly, they used to be worse because
I
it used to
think
just be like
so.
you look at them, make a save. Oh, you failed to save.
You
You're dead.
die. Yeah, now it's you drop to 0 hit points.
Yep. I was just like, you're
Uh,
just dead.
so I'm gonna ask you a question because I think I
Okay.
know what monster we encountered last week in Soldier's Lich Queen, and now that we're not in the game, I don't want to guess. Was it a
Yeah, yeah.
Chul?
Which one?
The
No, no, it wasn't. No, it wasn't.
fuck. I was like, oh, I hope this is a Chul because Chuls are fucking cool.
I will. I can tell you what it was actually.
You don't need to if it doesn't.
It,
Okay,
it,
cool.
it doesn't matter. It was a Neogi.
That's even cooler.
Because it's
Oh
just that's just that whole camp. It's like there's not really you don't get any extra information out of that. It's like
no,
the whole camp is just filled with horrible monsters.
don't can't Neogis enslave things?
I think so. Let me. If I'm thinking of the right thing.
Because Neogis are like these weird like spider like snake combos. They kind of have like a long neck.
Yeah, they were because there's the regular. There's I think there's like regular Neogi. Or I might be thinking of the wrong. Or no, I'm not. I am thinking of the wrong thing. It wasn't a Neogi.
Was it a Chul?
No,
I
let
want
me
it to be a
hang on.
Chul. Chuls are cool.
Let me pull up my notes.
Let me
Let
fight
me
a
pull up my
Chul.
notes.
Let me fight a Chul. I want to fight a Chul.
Oh, I've gotten killed by a Chul. Or no, one of our party members got killed by a Chul before. Those are rough. Those are powerful.
Bye, Garrett. Yeah, Chuls are great. I love aboleths.
Oh yeah, aboleth. Aboleths are weird because aboleths can go. I've had aboleths like take out a like give a party of like 6 10th level characters a hard time, but I've also an aboleth like get its lunch money taken by like 2 8th level characters.
I thought an aboleth beholder hybrid would be a lot of fun.
No, I remember that. That was oh
It
boy.
was gross. Yeah, it was bad. That was not a
Yeah.
balanced encounter. Because it was an aboleth beholder hybrid, a spectator,
Yeah,
and a death kiss.
yeah, I remember that.
All the beholders.
Yep. Sorry, not a Neogi. It was a Kruthic.
Oh, okay, yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
I put Kruthix into Beneath the Tide when you guys went down into the Stormfather's temple. There was Kruthix down there, like a Kruthik hive,
Mm.
and y'all just snuck past the sleeping Kruthix. So I was like, fuck,
Yeah, yeah.
Kruthix are cool.
Hmm.
They got like pack tactics and they're
Yep.
scary. They can be scary.
Yep. I've sent to.
Man, Kruthix are I really enjoy Kruthix. So another thing we were going to talk about is Mutants and Masterminds
Oh
a
yeah,
little bit. So how's that system been going?
I am loving it. It is fantastic.
How would you? What would you? Is so D&D Fifth Edition especially? There's a lot just to kind of pull together for rules. Like
Hmm.
there's gonna like for D&D Fifth Edition, you're definitely gonna forget rules. You're gonna forget a lot of stuff because there's a lot to balance.
Hmm.
How is it for like rules crunch for Mutants and Mastermind?
It is a crunchy system. It is a fairly crunchy
Oof.
system. Um, but like, I feel like I do feel like a lot of the crunch is in the character building, less in
Oh,
the
okay.
less in the actual playing.
So
Like
very
once
much
you,
so would it be like similar to like kind of how Shadowrun's character creation is? 'Cause Shadowrun's character creation is kind of
little bit, yeah.
crunchy, yeah.
Yeah, and they both, and yeah, especially because both of them involve like a build point system as opposed to like a class and
Ah,
race
yeah.
type thing. So yeah, you build your character. One of the things I like about it is you build your character from scratch. It's like you have your ability scores, your defenses, your powers, advantages, which are basically feats, and skills.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's everything, or like all the things you can, and then like equipment also,
Mm-hmm.
or like all the things you can spend build points on at the beginning. And it's like you just get build points. You can spend them. It's like you could technically have a character that just has ridiculously high ability scores, and then just like no superpowers because you didn't spend you spent
Oh,
all your
that's
points
really
on ability
cool.
scores. And it's a system that's built to be unbalanced, but also still maintains a good amount of balance.
So could you theoretically, because I've been watching a lot of Naruto,
Hmm.
could you play Naruto with Mutants and Masterminds?
You could pretty much play anything with mutants and
That's
masterminds.
really
Honestly,
cool. Because
it's
you could so like what you said with like putting all of your stuff in ability scores and not powers, you could just basically be Rock Lee.
oh yeah, definitely.
That's super.
Oh,
That's so
absolutely.
cool.
Well, because it's a system that's meant to capture the superhero genre, which
Mhm.
includes everything from Iron Man to Doctor Strange, where it's like a guy with a techno suit of armor as his source of superpowers, and a guy that does magic.
Why
And
am I
it's
not playing this game?
I don't know.
I
I
have
think.
I really want to play like a superhero thing because like
Hmm.
super into superheroes, and I have like on my shelf I have this like weird Marvel role playing game that I've never heard talked about anywhere,
Mm-hmm.
and just like I would have so much fun just doing like comic booky just cheese.
Yep. Oh yeah. And it's like yeah it's so it's also it's a system it only uses one die. It only uses a d20. That
Oh,
doesn't use any
interesting,
other dice.
interesting.
Yeah. So the main thing I'm still getting used to is when it comes to attack and damage and everything. There are no hit points.
Oh,
It
okay.
uses a completely different system for attack and damage. So basically, attack is the same. It's like there's people have defenses. You roll to hit their defense.
Mm.
But then when it comes to damage, uh, basically what it is that uh, sources of damage have a damage rank, which determines a DC. For then the
Mm-hmm.
recipient of the damage, they have to make a toughness check.
Okay.
So they basically like roll a saving. It's like you roll a saving throw against damage,
Mm-hmm.
and then depending on how badly you fail, you get different consequences. So like if you only fail by a little bit, the lowest consequence you can get for taking damage is a -1 to future toughness checks, and those stack.
Okay.
So it's like you can just keep getting hit with little attacks that keep like doing basically little bits of damage, but as long as you keep rolling like nat 20s on your toughness checks, you're going to stay up. But
Hmm.
also if you nat 1 on a toughness check, you might just go down immediately. So it's like
Oh, interesting. I really like that.
it's yeah, it's kind of like it's variable when it comes to like receiving damage.
So it's more like, mm, yeah, I do like that compared to like, because I know it's like some people want to like take somebody else stealthily in one hit.
Hmm.
That's really hard to do in D&D
Yes, it is.
because that's what I want to do to the sleeping dude. But I'm like, oh man, so many hit points.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's really cool. I like that. I like stuff like that
Yeah.
where you can actually like take somebody out stealthily.
Hmm. And like it has rules. One of my favorite things. So like there's when it comes to superpowers, like you can have superpowers that increase your toughness.
Mm-hmm.
It's incredibly customizable. So it's like you have the power effects, which are like effects. They're like I think of them like Legos. Like you can build them
Oh, that's really
together to
cool.
make stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And like it's almost like a programming language where it's like I'm going to do
Oh, I
this and
love
take
that.
this, and it's like I forget what they're called, but there's basically benefits and drawbacks you can add
Mm-hmm.
on that affect the cost, like the point cost of abilities. Where like you can take an attack and make it area of effect, or you can just leave it a single target. You can make it ranged. And so one of the like benefits you can add on to a defensive power is what's called making it impervious,
Mm-hmm.
which basically means that attacks with so it's like whatever the bonus is, whatever this power gives you as a bonus to toughness, if it's impervious, take half of that. Attacks with a damage rating of that number or less, you're just immune to. They just like can't you just cannot take damage from those attacks.
I'm so into that. That's so
Yeah.
cool.
And so then with that though, then there's a rule for team attacks where it's like everyone delays to the same time in the initiative, and then you all attack at once. And then rather than counting them as separate attacks, you take the person who has the highest damage modifier, and then it just adds on to theirs. So like if you have a person who's immune, like say everyone has like a damage rating of 2,
Mm-hmm.
and you're fighting someone who's impervious or immune to damage ratings of like 4 or less.
Mm-hmm.
If everyone's attacking that thing on their own, they literally can't do damage to it.
Wow.
But if they all delay and do a team up attack together and stack their attacks onto one person, it takes that and it just increases the damage rating to like 5 or 6.
Oh, okay.
Now it can get through. So it's literally like teaming up and like focusing fire on one point to try and like break through their armor.
Like fighting Thanos.
Yeah, yeah. There's
That's
like
really
actual
cool.
like team up tactics, just like encouraged for stuff like that.
So like could you like so is it built like you could have like any superpower you could think of, or is there like a preset like thing?
So it's any super, almost any power you can think of is
Okay.
what it comes down to. So like basically it gives you a menu of really customizable effects,
Mm-hmm.
and then you can like with the benefits and drawbacks and stuff and like other custom little tweaks and things you can customize with them, you can pretty much get any effect, anything you want. And like they specifically call them power effects because it's like
Mm-hmm.
if you have a certain superpower, it might have like multiple, like, oh yeah, I have the ability to do this, but it's like, okay, that's going to have multiple effects
Mm-hmm.
that you're going to pull through and spend points on. um, there's a few things that like I think I'm trying to think of ones like I don't think there's functionality for someone who can like stop time. I think like that's one of the
Yeah.
one powers that I found that you can't figure out how to do. But like there's a lot, because one of the things is like when it comes to combat, there's two powers that cover the majority of combat effects, which is damage and affliction.
Okay.
Damage is just like this power does damage. What that looks like is up to you.
Hmm.
If you would like that damage to be uh, like ongoing, like it sets them on fire, then you just add like an ongoing benefit to it. If you would like it to be area of effect, you add the area benefit onto it, and then it can do that. And then affliction is literally anything that causes a status effect, basically, like
Oh, okay.
gives someone a condition, and it's just like you pick three levels of condition. So like, and they're gradually like depending on how badly they fail their save,
Yeah.
it gives a different condition. So like if they really fuck up, they could just be like paralyzed. Versus like if they only fuck up a little bit, they could be like they could just have their movement speed reduced.
Okay.
And then there's like a whole bunch of customization on that, and like that covers a lot of the combat application ones. And then there's stuff like flight,
Yeah.
you can fly, but there's customization for that too. It's like, oh, you can have this be cheaper if your flight is dependent on wings, which can be tangled up with like grapple checks and
Yeah.
stuff.
That's really cool.
Yeah, so super super customizable. I've basically found that like it is easier to like if you're trying to make a character, it is easier to come in with a preconceived idea. It's like I want a character who can do this, and then you can just kind of make that happen,
Cool.
as opposed to like it is for someone who's used to D&D and going into like picking from like options. It's a little harder because it's just like you can figure out most anything.
Oh,
Like you
cool.
need to have like an idea ahead of time.
That's really cool. So you could like go in
Yeah,
and play like Deadpool, with,
yeah.
unless if yeah, because his whole thing is like regenerative abilities. He can't really die.
So regeneration and immortality are two of the power effects
Oh,
you can get.
so you
Regen-
literally play Deadpool. That's really cool.
yeah, because regeneration just like basically because as you take damage, you just get those like -1s to future toughness checks that kind of like represents the damage you're taking.
Yeah.
Regeneration, and my favorite thing about it is the front of the book has this is going to be the most math teacher thing I've ever said, but it has the best table I've ever seen in an RPG.
I appreciate good
Because
tables.
yeah, so basically what it includes is it includes ranks from like -5 up to 30, I think.
Hmm.
And like everything is defined in terms of rank, and like your powers and stuff have ranks and stuff. And then it has columns for like mass, volume, distance.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of it, and it's like everything kind of functions off that table. It's like if your character has, so it's like if your character has a rank 5 or it has a strength score of 5, because it goes the ability scores go from also like -5 to 20 basically,
Okay.
and it's just your ability score is just your bonus. Like there's nothing like D&D where you convert between like a number to a bonus. It's just like no, if you have a strength of 3, that is like 0 is average,
Okay.
and that's just your benefits. Like if you have a strength of 5 or like super strength that gives you a strength rating of 5, you just go to the table, find 5, go over to mass. That's how much you can lift.
Wow.
And like
Easy.
yeah, and it explicit, and then like it includes other stuff where it's like, oh, if you want to figure out how far you can throw something
Hmm.
with your super strength, you just take and it's like for me as a math person, this is like a dream come true, because it's like you just go down, you go onto the table, it like even tells you the equation to do. It's like take your strength rank, subtract like you kind of it's like take your strength rank,
Hmm.
go on the table, find the weight rank of the thing you're trying to pick up. So it's like if something weighs like 100 pounds, I think that's like a rank 1 or a rank 0.
Hmm.
And then it's like subtract that rank from your strength score. That'll give you like 4. Now go to 4. Go over to distance. That's how far you can throw it.
Wow.
Yeah, and it just
Nice.
gives you exact stuff like that. If you have like a speed rank or anything, you can figure out like how far you can travel in a certain amount of time. Like it just all functions off of this very convenient table that I.
I just looked at the cover of like the books. I'm like, those are cool covers.
Yep. Yeah. So pretty much like it's like if you pick a superhero, it's like you could probably build them in this system, given the right, given the right, given the right. So because you unlike D&D, you don't start at like 1 when it comes to power
Mm-hmm.
level. It's like you'll start anywhere from like 5 to 12 basically.
Okay.
And like basically the way, so because like 5 is like significantly above average, but like if you started at 1, you would have barely any points to spend.
Yeah.
Like you'd be restricted to like a +1 to attack and a rank 1 damage basically.
Okay. That's really cool.
um so, and that's the other thing is how it balances things is, uh basically it's balanced based on outcome, not based on like what options it gives you. Because like
Okay.
you can technically spend points on anything. The restrictions are, so you define a power level. Power level is kind of like the level, and that also determines how many build points you get.
Okay.
So like suppose you're playing a power level 10. Your If you add together your attack and damage rank, like your attack bonus and your damage rank, they cannot equal more than twice the power level. So like if you're
Okay.
rank 10, they can't add up to be more than 20. You could have like an attack bonus of +2 for a rank 18 damage, but you can't have you they need it's a balancing act between the two.
Mm-hmm.
Similarly, like your defenses, it's like your close range, and you have like you have your defenses are like dodge, parry, fortitude, will, and toughness.
Mm-hmm.
Like dodge is for avoiding ranged attacks, and parry is for avoiding melee attacks.
Cool.
Those like separate defenses for those. Your parry and dodge at like either of them added to your toughness can't also add up to more than double the power level of wherever you're at in the campaign.
Okay.
So like your which is also funny because like it's based on addition. You can go into the negatives. Like especially
Interesting.
there's a like one of the powers, like one of the power effects is growth. Like if you're just gigantic, or you can get like you can Ant-Man get huge. Those drop your dodge and parry defenses, which technically means like if they're a -4, it's like, oh, I can add that -4. That means my toughness could be 4 higher than the thing, because I've gone into the negatives here, which means this one can go above it.
Wow.
So yeah, it's based on like all of the balancing is based on like the final effects of things, like, or not even like the final numerical values. It's like, yeah, you can do whatever you want as long as these numbers don't go over this, which is
Okay.
kind of the opposite of D&D, where
Yeah.
it's like your numbers can be whatever you want, but here are your options. So it's
Mm-hmm.
like you can kind of like in D&D you're focusing on like, I'm going to take this and lump it onto this and lump it on this and trying to get this bonus to be as high as possible. This system is like, no, the speed limit is the
Yeah.
numbers. You can do whatever you want as long as
Cool.
these numbers don't go over this.
That's cool.
Yeah, it
That's
ends
really
up
cool.
being it can be a little frustrating sometimes, but like it's also just really convenient. Just be like, I can do whatever as long, and like you can have characters that don't even approach those because their
Yeah.
powers are focused on other things.
That's really cool. So you could like, yeah, the openness is very interesting. Like, so you could
Mm-hmm.
like have some people in the group like be like total like Superman esque characters, and then someone could be like a John Constantine esque character who doesn't have any powers but just messes with the occult,
Yep,
maybe.
and like magic is what is in there. It's like one of the powers you can technically use, and it's
Wow.
like this one gets really complicated because you start getting into some of the like more complex things for like alternate uses of powers and swapping things out and stuff, and like the way you can spend points, and like it can get very complicated. Like you can also just keep it pretty simple, but
A character that just turned into a werewolf.
yeah, yeah, that's definitely, transformations are super easy to do.
Wow, that's really cool. So,
Yeah.
what would you say the between D&D and Mutants and Masterminds, which one is less stressful to prep?
Ooh, good question. I think it depends.
Or which one, like, and which one do you have more fun prepping?
That's a good. So I mean, this one's that's it's hard to say because this one is new for me. So it's like it's
Right.
new and exciting. So like
Yeah.
I'm also running so the campaign I'm running with it is um the campaign I'm running is like a hero school
Mm-hmm.
campaign. So like I'm doing a lot of the stuff I'm prepping is really easy because it's a school environment. It's like there's a schedule. I can put together like classes. You know,
That's
it's
really
very
fun.
natural for me as a teacher. So, and like tests and exams and stuff. So it's like for that it's really easy to prep
Mm-hmm.
for things. Prepping NPCs is it depends. I'm still new at it, so it can take me a little while. But for the most part, because it is very fun to prep for because like you're not restricted by like you have a very robust tool set for building NPCs,
Hmm.
but you're not restricted by like class and race like you are in D&D.
Okay.
You can be like, yeah, I want someone who is like I want an NPC who is useless in combat, but has the ability to like project their vision and hearing anywhere within a mile of themselves, and like can see what like can just like
Yeah,
look anywhere they want within like a mile. It's like you can just do that.
that's really cool,
Yeah.
man. I'm curious how does like downtime work in it? Because I know like one of the good things about like one of the best things about D&D is like the downtime stuff that you can do.
Hmm.
And I know some games I've played, like other RPGs I've played, the downtime stuff is kind of hard to figure out. Like Call of Cthulhu, for example, you can do downtime in it,
Hmm.
but the downtime isn't really a forward focus in Call of Cthulhu. It's a lot of the downtime is quick little snippets of what happens in the downtime because if you get fucked up in Call of Cthulhu, you might be needing like a week to heal your wounds.
Oh yeah.
So all the downtime when I was running Call of Cthulhu was like, okay, this is like a week happens. What do you guys want to do in a week? But do it like really quickly because the whole point of Call of Cthulhu is you want to get on to the next case.
Hmm.
So how does like downtime work for something like this where there's superheroes?
So because I think that it depends on kind of the game you're running at that point. I've found like for myself, I put together a free time system,
Hmm.
based kind of on the Persona game, like Persona 5, where like it they're very fun. The Persona games are very fun. Great games for they're great games for seeing an excellent downtime system
Okay.
that is like the game is half dungeon delving, half like high school like down like free
Okay.
time management,
Cool.
and it's like uh, so it was a great model to use. And like one thing I did was I made it so that because so the sort of like level up system, like the character advancement system, is you don't just like gain levels and then it's flipped from D&D. It's not like you get levels and then you get stuff. It's you get stuff and then eventually you get to the point where you are now the next level. And
Hmm.
the way it works is basically like after each adventure, after each thing happens, you give them like one or two more build points,
Okay.
like add on to their total. When you hit the total, that is like the next character, like character ranks are like every 15 build points basically.
Hmm.
So it's like, oh, once you've given them 15 build points, they now have the build points. Like say they're rank 10, you give them 15 more build points. Now they're at the like about a rank 11. Now you can be like, okay, now the campaign rank has just gone up from 10 to 11.
Oh, okay.
Now like all of the ceilings on your abilities now just go up by a little bit. So now you
Oh,
can start
that's cool.
increasing stuff. But before that, like if you hit that ceiling, you need to kind of go more like lateral than like vertical. So it's
Okay.
like instead of like, oh, I'm gonna focus on increasing my attack, it's like I need to focus on increasing other things or gaining skills or like upping stuff that I'm not at my limit for.
Okay. That's really cool.
So yeah, so like I added in a system where like spending those build points takes time,
Hmm.
and like depending on what you're doing with it, it takes some time and stuff. So the school element of it is really helpful for that. I'm not quite sure what downtime would look like in a like just a classic superhero
Yeah,
sense.
that's like what I'm trying to imagine is because like what do superheroes usually do in their downtime?
Yeah, I know,
Not
right?
counting Peter Parker. Peter Parker goes to high school when
Yeah, or
when he's in high school,
yeah, or goes to work, but yeah.
or goes to or yeah works for the Daily Bugle. But then
Hmm.
what is like Iron Man doing his downtime aside from like being a billionaire philanthropist?
Yeah,
But like
yeah,
some of the other like superheroes, like what do they do in their downtime? Probably nothing interesting.
yeah.
Like I mean Loki isn't really a superhero, but he gets up to like shenanigans in his downtime. But he doesn't. He never. Superheroes don't really have downtime because
Yeah.
they're always doing something. It was
Hmm.
interesting. I think the high school idea is like a really good way to approach it.
Yeah, it's working out really well. It's giving a great structure for everything. It should just like be a very make things very clear, and give like because it's like I'm basically running like the major things are like tests where it's like yeah.
Right.
And the hardest prep was I made a full class worth of NPCs like other classmates.
Oof. Yeah.
So it's like I was able to make 20 unique NPCs, but like it was still a fairly entertaining process, and I was able to do it over the
Hmm.
course of like a couple of days. So
Yeah.
comparing that to D&D, like I don't know, I would have to see like
Yeah.
I'd have to try it, but I think it was also a lot easier to make 20 unique
Yeah.
NPCs than like all at once than it would be for D&D, than to just do like weird class. Like I've already done a ranger. Okay, maybe this subclass. Like,
Yeah, and then at one point, some point in D&D, you just take like stat blocks and
mm-hmm.
just use those and modify them. And,
Yep.
yeah, that's really cool. Um, yeah, Call of Cthulhu's downtime because everyone works basically in anything like a they're all investigators, so they all kind of have like this
Mm-hmm.
investigative firm they work at.
Yeah.
But sometimes they might not. If your players don't want to work in an investigation firm, they have their own kind of like they have their occupation. So like one
Mm-hmm.
might be like it might be a police officer. One might be a doctor. So in their downtime, they're at the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
So downtime in Call of Cthulhu is easier to kind of manage because it's also like I was gonna say grounded, but it's not
Mm-hmm.
really grounded because you're
Right.
dealing with like ancient monsters from beneath the ocean and ghosts
Right.
and werewolves and vampires.
Mm-hmm.
But Call of Cthulhu is a very fun game if people are like looking for something to play. Call of Cthulhu is really fun. It's easy. It's like an easy system to learn too because there's no like there really isn't an action economy in Call of Cthulhu. It's a lot of
Mm.
like your action is your whole turn. So
Mm.
you can move, do whatever you need to do on your turn. There's like no, yeah. So it's really easy to like grasp onto. There's no like rolling for initiative. It's whoever has the highest dexterity goes first. Yada yada yada,
Mm-hmm.
and you can die in one hit.
Nice.
So it's a really fun system. It's really easy to pick up. You just have to if you're running it, especially for like a stream. There's some stuff in there that probably doesn't translate too well in nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
So it's worth like looking into and worth like playing. 'Cause it's a lot of fun if you like horror kind of focused stuff. But there's stuff in there that's problematic still.
Oh yeah.
But that's just easy to kind of like not put in the game. So
Mm-hmm.
like one of the flaws is your character can be xenophobic. Well,
Yeah.
nah, that's not. We're not doing that.
Yep.
And even in the book, it says basically like fuck H.P. Lovecraft in the book, like in the
Yeah.
seventh edition book, which is worth saying.
Yeah.
But
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
it's a really fun system. There's a lot of systems out there I still really want to try. Like Mutants and Masterminds sounds like super fun.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd love to play like a John Constantine esque character, which is like a group of superheroes do like the whole like Justice League Dark kind of thing, where he's just
Mm-hmm.
like I'm just here smoking
Mm-hmm.
cigarettes, using magic,
Yep.
and really want to try Vampire.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
There's a lot of games out there, and it kind of sucks that D&D dominates the market
Yeah.
because there's a lot of like really fun RPGs out there that you can use that are designed for a specific kind of setting and feel. But everyone's like, well, how do I make this in D&D? It's like you don't have to. You can literally
Mm-hmm.
like find if you want to do a superhero game, there's systems out there that can do that for you. You don't have to convert D&D into a superhero game.
Right.
If you want to play like a horror game, D&D can do horror like
Oh
it's
yeah.
pretty easily. But if you want like a full-on like horror experience where the characters actually have a high chance of dying, because when D&D horror campaigns, they don't get too scary at later levels.
But yeah, healing magic.
Oh, ghost! I'm gonna one hit a ghost. But
Turn undead.
Call of Cthulhu, there is no like you don't get better at this because
Mm-hmm.
it says in the book characters shouldn't fight the creatures they come across.
Mm-hmm.
It says like your best chance of survival in Call of Cthulhu is running away. So I really like that because if they try to fight the monsters, they usually die.
Yep.
And it's got like a lot of fun mechanics. Like if you encounter Cthulhu, because you can encounter Cthulhu. If you encounter Cthulhu, you roll your sanity or whatever, something like that. And there's the outcome that Cthulhu just like instantly drives your character out of commission from insanity, and like, well, that character's out of the game.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what's really cool. Call of Cthulhu is great. I like the level progression system because it's not like D&D where you level up.
Right.
You only can increase your skills that you've succeeded on checks with, which I really like as a system because it doesn't make sense that you
Mm-hmm.
can level up a skill if you're not using it.
Yeah.
So like, for example, like if you keep succeeding on see hidden checks in Call of Cthulhu, every
Mm-hmm.
time you complete a case, so when you succeed on a skill check, you put a little check in a box beside that skill, and then when you complete the case, you can level up that skill. So you have to like roll percentile dice to see if you can level up that skill.
Mm.
So if you roll a certain amount. If you roll under your skill or lower, I think you level it up. But if you don't, that skill doesn't level up. It's a really cool way to handle like leveling up. And I really appreciate games that go like, well, okay, for example, like you're a rogue in D&D, but you want to level up your athletics,
Yeah.
like you want to level up your strength modifier, like, but you don't use strength.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
then,
like if you have like downtime, there's a training montage, maybe, but yeah,
yeah, there's like rules for like leveling up skills and downtime. Like you don't like there's rules for like leveling up your abilities when you're without a level up in D&D.
that's true.
But it's like you need to spend like a significant amount of downtime training.
Right. Yeah.
Like learning a new language in D&D takes like 8 weeks of
Yeah.
downtime. So like Hannibal's like every time he has a long rest, he's trying to learn deep speech.
Hmm.
Uh,
Yeah. It's funny actually because in terms of like people trying to take D&D and like make it do other things, it's actually fun. Looking at Mutants and Masterminds, I'm like, I could actually, I could. It'd be really easy to run a fantasy campaign with this system.
yeah,
Like
probably.
super easy because it's like it's so because it's meant to fit the superhero genre, which covers like everything. It's like,
Hmm.
yeah, you can just focus this down to anything, like because it has rules in there for like weapons and armor and
Yeah,
stuff.
and there's like there's superheroes who use like armor and swords, like Black
Yep,
Knight in the Marvel universe. Then there's
yep,
like Doctor Fate,
yeah, yeah,
kinda.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
you can easily
it's
do it.
stuff like, yeah, you can stuff like that, and it's like then you can have like, oh, your spellcaster type, but you don't have to like restrict it down to like just magic. You could have it be like, oh yeah, this person has this weird ability that allows them to do this, and like have it be a little bit more open ended, and like then the
Mm.
advancement can also be open ended. Like as you, I think that's my favorite thing about it is that like as you advance and like as you get more points and stuff, you can go in any direction you want. Like, you can develop new abilities and stuff. So whereas in D&D, there's the predeterminedness to it,
Yeah,
where it's like, yeah, I'm a rogue, which means I know that in the 6 levels I will know exactly what I have.
yeah.
Like there's not really any surprises for me here, whereas there can be.
Which I'm really appreciative of the optional class features they're starting to do for D&D,
Yeah,
which is really
yeah,
nice. So now like every rogue is going to be the same at a certain point,
yep.
which is really nice.
Hmm.
Um, can't think of any more questions.
Yeah. Oh wow, we've been here for almost 2.5 hours. Look at
Yep.
that. Well,
Yep.
is that did we hit the end? Is that
I
it?
think that's it. Yeah, I got
All
nothing.
right.
I got nothing
Okay.
else.
All right. Well, that's a good stop point then.
So thanks for watching, everybody. Thanks for the
Yeah.
questions.
Hmm.
We do this. We're gonna do this. Try to do this every time there's no Soldiers of the Lich Queen, just so we can keep this time slot, regular.
Yep.
And this is a lot of fun to talk about.
Yeah.
If you got any suggestions for topics to talk about, you can drop those in the chat, and we can formulate discussions on that. You can put it in our Discord. You can send us messages on Twitter about topics you'd like to see discussed. There's a lot. Um, yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot to talk about when it comes to
Hmm.
RPGs. Um, but yeah, forgot to mention at the start, Patreon, Mimics and Monstrosities on Patreon. I talked a little bit about the adventure you can get on there, Nothics and Gibbering Mouthers, two of the coolest D&D monsters.
Yep.
Still raising money for Color of Change. The link was dropped a couple times in the chat. We're doing that indefinitely. It's a really great charity. Because fuck white supremacists.
Hmm.
Yeah. Beneath the Tide finale this Wednesday at 9:30 p.m. Eastern time.
Yeah. Be there.
Be there because I have no notes for it,
Hmm.
which is great. Well, that's a lie. I have notes, but like 3 bullet notes compared to
Right.
like my usually like a page and a half of notes. So it's gonna be a lot of
Hmm.
fun. Uh, Legends of Wildmount, our Wildmount campaign on Wednesday, starting half an hour early now. They can kind of compensate for Beneath the Tide, so I don't have to rush. And hopefully this coming Sunday, the 21st, we'll be back with Soldiers of Lich Queen.
Yes, you can find out what happened with Hannibal and Drusilla in the
Yeah.
in the camp and getting caught.
See if I die a second time.
And we'll find out.
Second time in one day.
Hmm.
Um, or the following day. Either way.
Yeah.
I think that's everything.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for joining us, folks.
Yes.
And we will see you again next week, but hopefully I'll see you Wednesday for the
Yes.
finale of Beneath Time.
Wednesday. A 2-year campaign ending on Wednesday.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Goodbye, everybody.